resource management and communications today. Resource management has 6 processes, and we'll see these more as we go through the stuff. Picture of all 6. There are 2 in planning, 3 in execution, and 1 in control. And it's kind of interesting the way they think about this. I know a couple of my students said, well, I know up front what people I want to have on my team. I don't have to wait until I'm actually doing the work. But that's kind of the way they think about it. And actually, this has changed a little bit because it used to be more focused on resource management. As a matter of fact, it was called project resource management. Project human resource management. They realized they were kind of including, the equipment, materials, and everything else in it, but not that specific on what we did with all that stuff. So they kind of changed it a little bit. So now instead of acquiring a team, it's acquire resources, all the resources, but still has a couple of things focused on the staffing. We're developing the team, managing the team, and then in monitoring control, we'll be controlling the resources.
I was always good with them using like project resource management and saying that they have to acquire resources. But when you talk about people, you should still refer to them as humans, not resources.
Yeah, that's the thing. This resources here is that whole group, the people part, but also any equipment, machines we're going to use.
Yeah, the PMs at United Health Group call everybody a resource.
A resource.
And I'm like, no, they're people.
Yeah.
I try to tell them resources are hardware.
Yeah.
But
That's a good point.
What do I know?
So it's interesting, yeah, because like I said, it used to be more people-focused. It was human resource management. But then they realized on their side of it that they were kind of sort of talking about, in construction, you need yards of concrete and tons of steel, and various industries, you need other things besides people. My world was largely people and, labor hours and stuff. We did mostly software developers and testers and things. I think we might have had maybe 5% of hardware development. It was almost all software development. So some key concepts, we're going to be looking at the team, the individuals and the assignments and roles we're going to be giving to them. One of our jobs a lot of times is getting the people we need. So that's where that second bullet is getting at: acquiring, managing, motivating, and empowering our team. On the physical resource side, is what they kind of separate out for the materials and equipment and supplies kind of things. We need to make sure we can get the stuff and equipment we need. There's some different approaches to resource management depending on the kind of industry. Lean is more focused on manufacturing. Just-in-time is too. Just-in-time I thought was interesting because when I was back in college, I worked for International Harvester in the city and was totally impressed with how much steel and cast iron they had sitting around collecting rust. The place called Tractor Works was an old combination of a bunch of old companies, I guess. There was Farmall, there was, I remember all the groups that merged into Harvester. They had a huge piece of property. It had a board shop, a lot of manufacturing, welding. They made construction tractors there, did a lot of different things. And they also had warehouses that were sitting with those parts rusting away. It was kind of strange because I worked there a couple summers, and at the end of the month we went crazy, or they went crazy, and had us working overtime and stuff to get things loaded up. I worked on the shipping department, and we'd load up tractors onto trailers or onto rail cars. In the beginning of the month, everything dropped down to nothing. So they send us out to the warehouse to count parts or push a broom. I did like one of the things that Harvester did, though. They allowed, with their management and union people, to have their sons and daughters work in the summer, which I thought was kind of a neat thing. My dad worked in labor relations, so he wasn't in Chicago. He was in Melrose Park, where they had another plant, where I ended up later. But I think in that industry, and of course in the auto industry, a lot of industries, I began to realize, keeping a pile of parts sitting around is probably not a great idea. So just-in-time manufacturing, I think, became more important. Kaizen is kind of the principle of continually looking for little ways to improve what we're doing. TPM, I'm not that familiar with, total productive maintenance, but I think that kind of says what it is. Theory of constraints comes in too. I mean, we talked about constraints back at the beginning about, cost and schedule, and you only have so much money or so much time to do the work. Emotional intelligence, I think this is interesting. This is something that's developed, I think, in a lot of companies in the last decade or so. How do we help people settle down, basically, or manage their emotions? How do I handle my emotions, but how do I help my team, be more level and deal with crisis without going nuts? Self-organizing teams is really more of the approach in Agile, where you've got the team working together and really making more decisions and not being dictated by the project manager. And virtual teams, distributed teams, well, it's obviously becoming more regular. And I think with all the new tools we've got, we use GoToMeeting or WebEx or something like that, and largely all we saw were slides put up on the screen and heard voices. I think originally we used the phone to call in too, and then eventually it was actually through the entire system that way.
You hear Vermont is giving people up to $10,000 a year for 2 years to be a virtual team member for other companies outside of Vermont.
Really?
Yeah, I just heard about that. It went live on January 1st. And they've had tens of thousands of hits, and they only have 25 slots.
Wow, that's interesting. I like that idea.
Yeah. I would move there for $20,000 total.
Yeah.
Work remote.
You get one of the 25 slots?
Mm-hmm.
Why just 25 slots? Is that just one company?
That was all the funding. It was federal or state funded. So
some things we need to consider, and this is tailoring for any kind of project. What's the diversity of our workforce? Where's everyone located? Are they scattered? Are they all in one place? There'll be industry-specific things, and if we're talking about IT, it's going to be different than if we're talking about construction, somewhat different than maybe medical or finance. How do we get people? That's where HR or personnel administration usually comes to play. How we're going to manage the team, and what kind of life cycle approach are we doing? Are we doing a predictive life cycle or more an agile life cycle? With agile, it really is more of a focus on the team working together. Should be in any situation. I mean, no matter what kind of project we have, we want the team to work together. Kind of like a duh, sure. So we're going to look at the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs like we've been doing. Look at different organization structures and the influence of management. The different kind of influence or power we can have in different kinds of organizations. I gave you a bunch of handouts. Also gave you a handout of the Rita chart, which you can play with if you want to, cut up and play with. I think what I saw with their online tool, which I'll send some links to you later, probably a better way to play with that than cutting up the little squares and the rectangles and putting them around on the board. Talk about different kinds of leadership styles and some motivational theories and how do we deal with conflict. There's some challenges we have. People come on a project and usually it's temporary assignment. So we only have the people for a little while and they may come and go. They may have some bad relationships with some of their other team members, which we could inherit. I think more so nowadays than 20 or 30 years ago, it's such a churn of people that we'll see, a lot of people coming and going. So our stakeholder list is going to be changing quite a bit. So especially if we're in a functional organization or strong or weak matrix, we may not have a lot of management control over people either. That functional manager may still be mostly in charge. There'll be conflicts. Sometimes cultural challenges, and in many companies, there's going to be that pressure and stress of being behind and having to work overtime and a lot of things to get done. Not a good work environment if you're always under pressure that way. It was kind of like what it was for me at UPS. Kind of came in every day with the threat of being fired. People rarely got fired, but that black cloud was always over you. It wasn't in my section of UPS, wasn't a great world to be working in management. Hourly, it was great. So I was actually an hourly for a while, and I was a Teamster. Harvester was actually United Auto Workers. I've been in unions twice, 3 times. And I think almost everyone at UPS that went into management that had been a driver, rude the day they did that. Wanted to go back to being a driver. Was a driver, you did your work, went home. Overtime, time and a half.
What union was your Teamster?
710 or 705. But some in both. I think I was 710. And hourly workers at UPS, well, it's probably true of FedEx or most of the delivery companies. And we were making $25 an hour, something like that, overtime, especially between Thanksgiving and Christmas, tons of it, even the rest of the year sometimes. So those,
it depends what version of FedEx you're working for. Because if you're FedEx ground, you have to buy your own truck.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, those guys are all independent contractors.
Okay, so that's a little different.
Yeah,
I know FedEx was basically a mirrored image of UPS once it got started, except they were just doing air shipments and not ground shipments, which I remember a long time ago was a big issue because Feds considered UPS a truck company and they considered FedEx an airline. And even though FedEx was shipping and moving a lot of stuff on the ground, I know now they're more balanced off, but it used to be kind of a disadvantage for UPS.
Well, UPS was the only one that was allowed to take trucks onto Lakeshore Drive for the longest time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. FedEx, like the big ground trucks, were just considered, they were considered cars. So they could drive on Lakeshore Drive.
UPS called them package cars.
Yep. And that was a political reason for it. They could go down any boulevard.
Yeah.
Where FedEx needed to buy and DHL, they needed to buy small vans and stuff to be able to drive on those roads.
It's funny because in my time at UPS, I remember going down like LaSalle Street and seeing all the delivery trucks double parked. Here's along the side, you'd have the cars parked there, and then another row next to the cars of UPS, FedEx, the mail, everything else.
Yep. And now there's a bike lane.
With a UPS truck sitting in it.
Probably.
Yeah. We went through in and out with the city on that too, and every once in a while they'd haul off a truck and put it in the pound when they got upset with UPS or something. Kind of funny. Inputs to plan, quality management, the scope baseline I mentioned is 2 of the main things. Schedule, I think, obviously one of the main things too. Where are we sending our resources, our people, and our equipment? What kind of requirements do we have? Risk register. I think, it's funny, in risk, one of the big things in my world, and I think in a lot of worlds, is we don't always have the people or equipment that we need. Those are usually sources of risks. Along with, maybe having a top end limit on, you can't spend more than $1 million. You got to be done by June 1st. Those kind of constraints. Enterprise side, culture of our organization, where we're located, what kind of people and resources do we have in-house, what's going on in the marketplace, which sometimes can drive what we're doing with resources. It was interesting for Motorola. One of my students up north worked with the mobility group and was an expert at what you did with the screens. And he wanted to stay local because his son was in high school. And he interviewed with Google, let's see, 2 or 3 companies out in California, and also locally, a company called Case International, which is the leftovers of Harvester's farm equipment group. And he decided to work for them so he could stay local. So he lives up north, but he was actually going down to Woodridge, someplace south of here. Burridge, that's it. It was kind of funny. One of my friends at church actually was his boss when he worked down there. And we just were talking one Sunday about that, and he told me, yeah, his last day is Friday. I go, really? Apparently Google had kept coming after him, giving him a little more. Finally, he couldn't refuse, I guess, and so he ended up going to Google. But, for the farm tractors, and I haven't been around farm tractors for a while, but, they've got built in
lots of tech.
Lots of tech, yeah.
You don't need, the farmer now can sit in there and he just puts on some MP3s or cruises the internet while the truck drives itself. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah. Or watch TV live in it. Well, you can do that with YouTube or something like that, I suppose. Yeah. Tools and techniques. Well, our people are good at dealing with our resources. We'll be experts there probably. What kind of skill sets we're going to need for our people, what kind of equipment or materials we're going to need. Preliminary level of effort. I think we talked about that some back in the schedule. For one person on a 10-day activity, it's probably going to take 10 days. 2 people, closer to 5. Probably diminishing returns if we put 4, 5, 6 people on it, because there'll be more coffee breaks and disruption just getting the work done. We'll be looking at different kinds of charts to lay things out. That WBS is going to be helpful. Organizational breakdown structures. We'll be talking about a couple of different kinds. I used to think of it just being like an org chart. Here's the people, here's the bosses kind of thing. Resource breakdown structure is going to be similar. We'll have some examples of those coming up. Talk about some different matrices. A RAM or RACI or RACI. And we'll have more of that coming up too. A little bit about organizational theory. There's different ways to handle people, different structures in different companies and things. So a lot of times it's important to understand how people work together and how to keep them together, and how to deal with conflicts and motivate them. Here's an example of a RAM. It's kind of showing the different work that needs to be done and who person-wise or location-wise is being, so we got the project manager, we got some analysis going on, a client manager, and the categories are sign-off, accountable, participates, and reviews. I'm going to look up before class the difference between sign-off and accountable. I think you can kind of see it here. Client manager is going to sign off on something, but we're responsible or accountable for getting the work done. We'll probably have some of our people working on it. A RACI or RACI is also a kind of a RAM. Here we got names of people, and RACI stands for this: responsible, accountable, consult, or inform. And some people actually use those charts. That was kind of interesting. I don't think we use that. We use something more like this though quite often. This is an example of a resource plan over time. And it's actually by quarter. When it says 1.0, basically it's saying, project manager is going to work 100% on that, fully assigned to that one project. Senior architect, high during the first year here, then tapers off. You kind of see where we're doing the work. Down here in the second year, we got the couple senior developers and the 10 junior developers doing the work. This helps lay out our plan. Actually, this is helpful too later where we're trying to optimize our people and make sure we're able to balance them off. In my world, this 10 might actually be 20 or 30 people because they might be working on multiple different projects. They're probably not 100% assigned, but that's the level of staffing we need though. Here's another thing that also helps with leveling things off. It's a histogram showing the hours we need over time. So in this case, you can see that the second week in January, they were way up there. I'd probably see if we can balance this work off a little bit, maybe a little bit more. Well, probably people are coming back from New Year's and not doing a lot of work the first week, but I might see if we can move some of it out to February here to balance it off a little bit more. The outputs of this will be a resource plan. So we're going to identify the different resources we're going to need, how we're going to acquire them, what roles and responsibilities we want. Probably have an organizational chart that will represent this. And we'll talk to, when we pull the people in, there may be some people that need some training too. It mentions that this could go through a lot of changes and iterations. And I think that's largely because we don't always know what people we've got available or what equipment we got available. And especially if there's 2 or 3 other projects going on at the same time that want the same people, along with our churn, people leaving the company or being let go. I told my wife about PIP yesterday and what she said about PIP. You went on to a process improvement program, and then you're like, oh.
Yep. And it was pretty much 100%. I can't think of anyone that's ever been on a PIP that wasn't like unless they were put on it mistakenly.
Wow, that's.
I know someone, older employee, who had been with the organization in one form or another for about 27 years. 10 years ago, had a knee replaced. Then 2 years ago, had the other knee replaced. Was out for 3 months, like the maximum that you could do. And then came back, her desk was moved. Different part of the building than the rest of her team. She was immediately put on a PIP for not being up to speed. And 2 weeks later, let go.
Wow.
And as soon as I heard she was on a PIP,
You knew she was gone.
Oh yeah. So, and I had known her, I'd worked with her for like 5.5 years. I'm like, here's a lawyer. Write down everything that happens. Like, log everything. She did. She couldn't afford the lawyer. I recommended it was a $10,000 for what she needed. And I'm like, they moved you from your department right after medical leave. No, they were walking out the door. Fight it. But she didn't. She wrote down, she had everything tracked. But, yeah.
It's too bad.
Should we wait for him?
I think we'll keep going.
Okay.
This is getting recorded, so if he wants to get refreshed. He's
Okay.
also got the notes there too. So we got the resource plan put together, how we're going to develop the team, what we're going to do for recognition. Team charter is a new thing that they emphasize a little bit more in this version of PMBOK, and I actually gave you a handout on the team charter. We'll have the values for the team, how we're going to communicate, who's going to make decisions, and how we're going to work that through, how do we deal with conflicts, meeting guidelines, and really having everyone agree to this charter, which I think is an interesting idea. I kind of like that. We may have some updates to our assumptions log and our risk register. 9.2 is estimating activity resources. So what we're doing here is estimating how much are we going to need for equipment or people on different activities. This is tied in real closely with our estimating cost process too. It's interesting, in the older version of PMBOK, this was actually under schedule management and not under resource management. Not a big deal, but I think it makes a lot of sense here too, but that makes it also closely tied in with what we're doing in schedules and the activities. So the resource management plan we just put together, scope baseline, activity attributes and list. Going to tell us what resources we need on various activities. Assumptions log, cost estimates, resource calendars and risk register, all those things feeding in. Enterprise environmental factors, where are the people located, what's the organization culture, kind of skill sets do we have, who's available, a lot of things like that. And then outside too, there may be some marketplace conditions or estimating data that we can pull in. And we probably have policies, procedures, historical information pull up from the OPAs too. Unless we're starting as a brand new company, we probably already know a lot of the people and equipment and everything we're going to be using. Some things we need to consider, this more on the people level again too. What kind of folks do we have? They leaders, workers, they introverts that like to get work done but don't like to be in a big crowd. What kind of skill sets do they have? What's the capability of the people we've got? Who's available? In my world, it was a big deal because a lot of times we'd have actually probably 30, 40 projects going on at the same time. So key people were often in high demand. Maybe some policies that we need to keep in sync with. What have we done in the past with people? Staffing matrix would be helpful. And on the resources, that's right. You said resources is people. It's not people, it's equipment, materials, and stuff. So being aware of that too. If we're construction and all our tractors are tied up on another project, we need 3 tractors or 3 bulldozers, that could be a problem.
How the heck would you, I couldn't imagine doing this with a brand new, like a startup. That would be overwhelming.
They would probably wing it a little bit more and be doing things
with their 20-something-year-old boss.
Oh, yeah.
Just fly by the seat of their pants.
20-something-year-old boss and 10 people on the team or something like that.
All between the ages of 22 and 27. Yeah.
And 3 of them leave before the project's even started. And
yeah.
Bring in 3 new people.
And they get pissed off if you don't have Red Bull and Gatorade and caffeine. And, yeah.
Something that impressed me about Google, and actually there was a story about a young guy that went to Google, and you know, property out in California is exorbitant. Mm-hmm. And so what he did, he bought a nice van, put a mattress in it, mm-hmm. and sat in the parking lot. I don't know if he was able to do that forever, but what his plan was, is at Google, they give you breakfast, lunch, and supper. Mm-hmm. They got showers and facilities in there, you know, workout rooms and things. His idea was he was going to work there until he was 40 and be done and retired. Interesting idea. Like I say, I don't know how that worked out. I would think eventually they might kick him out of the parking lot. But
your van hasn't moved in 6 months. Yeah.
Might have to move once a month just to go to the grocery store or something to forget gas.
Well, no, you just use one of the Google buses or bicycle or scooters.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hard to have a social life that way, though.
Yeah. Unless you met somebody in work that became buddies or friends with. And
yeah. Where do you live? Well, for now, I'm in my van.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Want to take me out? You got your car.
Yeah. Don't sit on my bed, man.
Tools and techniques. There's our experts again. Bottom-up estimate, this may sound familiar because we talked about this, schedules and cost. Well, resources good this way too. You know, who's going to do the work, what resources we're going to need. Bottom-up is considered the most accurate. Analogous or parametric are those top-down kind of approaches. Data analysis, we may look at different ways or alternatives on doing the work. I know in my world, a lot of times that was more like, what was the capacity of various teams? Should we do the work in Dallas or Fort Worth? Or if they're booked down there, should we do the work in Krakow? I never got to go to Krakow. I wanted to go because originally the company was in a castle. Mm. I was trying to imagine how they did all the infrastructure. Must have had a floor in it to put all the wiring and everything else underneath it. Because most castles are mostly stone. Mm-hmm.
I've interviewed for the wine group out in Bannockburn, and their headquarters is a castle.
Oh yeah,
and it's in the middle of a subdivision, not a corporate park. And during the interview, I just remember I was sick as a dog. This was 10, 15 years ago. about 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Sick as a dog, and I show up and I'm sitting on a chair that's like 200 years old,
Wow.
and there's like knights armor up and
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Yeah, it was. They had way too much money. It was an interesting interview.
Yeah.
And then after that, I spent a week in the hospital.
Oh boy.
I was real sick.
Yeah, sounds like it. We may be using those tools that are under the project management information system to do some of this work too, estimating, and this is something we did probably in our scheduling tools. The outputs of this would be our resource requirements, types and quantities of resources we're going to need for each activity in the work packages. Maybe some updates to our assumptions, who's available. If we don't have the people in-house, can we get contractors or outside people to help? What was the basis for our estimates? A part of that we probably covered back when we put the schedule together and figured out about optimization of the schedule. A resource breakdown structure, which would list off the resources we're going to be using, both the labor and equipment, and what kinds of things we have. Like, well, this is more people focused again. Job description, there's skill level and pay grade. And then updates perhaps to our activity lists and resource calendars. Here's an example of a resource breakdown structure, which I thought was interesting because I thought it would be just people, but it's the people part, but also the materials we're going to be using, equipment. So an RBS will show up twice throughout the exam, but I think they won't confuse them. One is going to be the resource breakdown structure, and the other one's going to be a risk breakdown structure. I don't believe they're ever going to mix those and make it crazy. I mean, there are some weird questions as we've seen, but I think they'll keep those separate. I thought it was interesting that they've got not just the people part in your structure, so it's a little different than an org chart. It's also talking about what kind of material and equipment we're going to need. Under execution then, we got 3 processes: acquire the team, acquire the resources. You guys can use that too. Develop the team and manage the team. So what we're doing in acquire resources, getting the people, equipment, facilities we're going to need, get the work done for this project. And to mention that second bullet, we a lot of times have to negotiate and work through getting the resources we need. So a lot of times we're not the only project in the company. And if we're not, a lot of key people may be working on other projects that we need. I know in my world, we had one functional team, and I think I mentioned this before, the Israel team was always working on older stuff. And a lot of times they couldn't start on our new projects for like 2 more weeks. So we had to actually plan that in, both into our schedule and into our planning. They must not have been on the critical path work. They didn't, most of the time they didn't push our total schedules out. But as it mentions here, if we don't have the people or resources we need, that can affect a lot of things. Schedule, budget, bunch of risks maybe. So we'll be looking at various alternatives to cover those shortages. Moving people in-house, getting contractors, renting equipment, lots of different ways we can work out those solutions. So from the big plan, especially the resource management plan we just put together, how we're going to acquire resources, the roles and responsibilities for the people side of it, any org charts that may help us see the people side. Procurement management plans mentioned here. Procurement really is talking about contracts. A lot of times in contracts we're thinking about how third-party vendors and stuff for materials or equipment. But I think it's probably more the idea of outside contractors we're going to be pulling in for work. I guess it could be the equipment too if we don't have all the equipment. Cost baseline, maybe kind of limited on how much we can spend. Various documents, schedule, calendars, resource requirements, stakeholder register. Environmental factor side, we're probably pulling people from different places, and they need to get HR involved, especially if we need skill sets or people that are not in-house. And we may have certain policies for, pulling in contractors or outside people. That was interesting. When I was at Motorola, one of my first pals and buddies used to work for Motorola, and he was laid off, but he came back as a contractor. Which unfortunately is the way a lot of companies did things. Bring back as a contractor, no benefits, maybe pay him a little bit more, but without the security and stuff of working for the company. Of course, the working for the company security kind of changed over the last couple of decades. OPA side, we probably have policies and procedures, again, for acquiring teams. Probably historical information that can help us with this too. So some things we need to consider: who's available, when are they available, what kind of skill sets or competencies do they have, what's their previous experience. A lot of times that can help us deciding who to bring in. Personal interests. We'll talk about motivation a little bit more later, but what they're interested in a lot of times can help us in working with the team. What's the cost? Internal staff versus external staff. What kind of people are they? Are they team players? Quiet introvert that does good work but doesn't want to be around a big crowd? And as mentioned at the bottom there, a lot of times we're competing for the same people and resources with other projects. So we may have to go do a fair bit of negotiating there to get the people we need, when we need, for equipment. Some things about decision making. It's called multi-criteria decision analysis. We're looking at a lot of different factors here, figure out who we need, when we can get them, availability, so cost, experience, ability, knowledge, skill sets, what kind of attitude they have, and the international factors come into play too, especially if you're an international company. If we're all located in one place, that sort of simplifies things. Sometimes it makes it worse if you're all in one place. Tools and techniques. We may be, if we have to work with functional managers, that's going to be important. Other project teams, we're doing a lot of similar kind of work. And external organizations, suppliers, that we're getting people or materials from the outside. And a lot of times our teams can be helpful in this too, especially if they know like good people that are working in other divisions or other projects, they may be able to help us some too in negotiating for those people we need. Pre-assigned staff, great idea. I don't think it's done extremely well or a broad thing, but that's nice if we can do that. And then virtual teams, again, there's some communication challenges, but I think it's gotten a lot better with all the tools we got now to do this if we're scattered around the world or scattered around. Funny, when I first started working at Motorola, Arlington Heights had 5 buildings, big buildings, and then renting like the frontage road 1-story buildings. My program controls team was scattered. We weren't in one place. There was an idea, I think, at some point that you're intermingled with all these other teams. It's probably better than if you were just isolated with your one team. That changed over time. We eventually were all in one place. But kind of interesting. Within my building, my boss was actually pretty close to me, about 30 feet away. Another boss was about 20 feet away. One of my coworkers was in the next section. There was a wall between us, but he was in the next office down the way. Then everyone else was scattered in the other, either one was on the 3rd floor, a couple were on the 3rd floor, a couple were in the next building. It's like, this is kind of crazy. We had to do conference calls a lot of times. That's when we could go to the conference room, work things through. A couple things about acquiring resources. The halo effect. It's this idea that if somebody's really good at one thing, they'll probably be good at something else. So in my world, might have that lead software developer that's really good at software development, maybe even doing some work with the partners, but maybe didn't have a lot of knowledge and experience on how to put together schedules and costing and staffing plans. And I mentioned the Peter principle in here too, because I think this kind of ties in with it. Peter Drucker, I don't know if you're familiar with him, did a lot of business related kind of stuff. The Peter principle ended up being this idea that people get promoted to one level above their competency. My boss's boss was like that at Motorola. He really wasn't that great at presenting all the good work that our teams were doing. And when we did one of our reorganizations, basically, he kind of fell flat on his face presenting the information to the people above. And our teams ended up getting disbanded and dispersed into the different functional teams. Kind of a sad day for us.
Isn't it you get promoted to the level of incompetence? Same thing.
That's right.
That's the Peter principle, yeah.
Yeah.
The halo effect Peter principle to me sound kind of similar.
I had a guy that used to work for me. He was brilliant when it came to fixing stuff and writing scripts and that kind of stuff. He was great at it. But he was autistic and he had no people skills whatsoever. And it was simple. If there was a problem and he could just fix it, remote in, fix it and get out, and just say, hey, I'm contacting you, I'm gonna get in your computer, I'm gonna fix it and get out. That was okay, but if he had to actually talk to someone, I gave the ticket to somebody else.
Oh.
He wasn't allowed to talk to people. I physically went to his desk and unplugged his phone. I'm like, the only people you're allowed to talk to are team members. I'm like, nobody else. Just don't do it. I'm like, when we have meetings, plug in your headset.
And listen.
Yeah, I don't, he could talk to us.
Oh.
We understood he's not actually an asshole. He's just autistic and has no people skills whatsoever.
Yeah. That's kind of a bad combination.
Well, he was able to fix some really complex stuff and he remembered the dumbest of details. So he was good that way.
So brilliant as far as.
Yeah, idiot savant. Yeah, he's one of those guys that you could lead him to water, but he would starve to death because he would like die of thirst. If you didn't hand him a cup and say, you could scoop.
Yeah, you can scoop water out of there.
Really? Wow. Yeah, he's that kind.
Wow.
But yeah, he could tell you the molecular structure of like stuff, and like serial numbers from servers. I'm like, you really know the serial numbers?
Serial numbers, yeah.
And he wouldn't forget those.
Wow.
What the hell? But he was also a good resource for if hardware went missing. He was really good at that.
He knew the serial numbers of all the hardware. So.
Yeah, he did. And unfortunately, that and a report that took about 2 weeks to get led me to fire 3 people for stealing.
Oh, wow.
Because of this dude's memory. I'm like, did you work with anyone from this location? Did you work with anyone from that location that had this kind of hardware? Yeah. Can you tell me any of the serial numbers? And he could.
Wow.
And when I did this in front of my VP. And my VP, he was just, his jaw dropped. And he was just like, what? And that was awesome. I'm like, okay, thank you. That's the initial. I mean, he had like 5 or 6 laptops right off the bat that we were able to see were definitely sold through Craigslist or something.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to do it through that. And then we did something else and we turned them all off. And then the people that bought them got really mad. So it was fun because as soon as they connected to the internet, they disconnected. Yeah, they needed a password and the hardware became a brick.
Nice.
Yeah. It's called something called CompuTrace, which is built into the BIOS. But yeah, that sucked. I had to fire 3 people because of that.
Yeah, that's not good, but it was good
Yeah.
that you had that guy with that kind of memory that could.
Yeah, he was fun that way. I mean, be like, do you remember what laptop I had 7 years ago? And he totally would. Thanks.
Wow.
I know one other guy like that. He was a Novell expert, which is kind of a dead subject. But yeah, he was. We were a Granger, and for his position, they wanted him to be certified. He didn't remember what cert for Novell they wanted him to get, so he got them. They told him in January. In December, he's like, "I'm like, did you get your certs yet?" no, they were serious. I'm like, yeah. Oh, do you remember which one I needed? I'm like, no. So I'll just take them all. So he took every Novell certification there was within 2 weeks.
Wow.
And he passed them all.
Hmm.
Like, that's absurd.
Wow. That's the kind of resource you want to keep on your team, though, especially if you work with, well,
they did call him,
Novell.
he was the mayor of his own village.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was really hard to deal with. And he was a disgusting person, too. He meant well, but he had, again, no people skills, didn't know how to wash his hands after going to the bathroom, couldn't eat with his mouth shut, didn't like people touching him, so he cut his own hair. And his car was incredibly disgusting. But he was really smart when it came to IT.
Yeah.
But that's he was the stereotypical IT guru. Long, scraggly beard. He had a haircut that looked like a monk, like a 16th century monk, and big fat guy. He was so stereotyped. He was awesome.
Reminded me of one of the guys I worked with at Harvester. Was same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that people that are brilliant sometimes have no people skills?
They're autistic, typically. They're on the spectrum.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of really good programmers that are autistic.
Uh-huh.
And my ex used to work with autistic kids, and they were great at programming.
Oh.
They could speak computer languages out the wazoo. Like a 7-year-old that knew C++. I was like, not even visual C++. He knew actual C++. I was like, wow. And he's like, and then he began doing Visual C, and then he began doing like all these different languages. And by the time he was 9, he knew like 10 or 11 programming languages.
Wow.
But you couldn't sit down and have a conversation about, well, what's your favorite color? That would throw him off. How to tie his shoes? Couldn't do that.
Wow. That's interesting. I know my 11-year-old granddaughter, well now 12, actually had an after-school group. I mean, she was in orchestra and choir too, but the other after-school group was programming.
Nice.
And she's not autistic or anything, but she was learning some stuff. And I know she likes to play with end-to-end and different tools or different games and stuff. Or she played with my son's old iPhone when she was probably 4 or 5 and do all sorts of great things.
Yep. A lot better than QBasic. That's what I had when I was like 10.
Oh, I didn't even have that kind of stuff until I got, no, not even in college. Later, I think.
I took summer camp at Broward Community College in Southern Florida, right near Fort Lauderdale. And some of the programming classes were available because summer camp there was like going to college. And we were little. It was awesome.
Well, so we required our resources. The outputs of this would be our resource assignments, both the physical and people side of it. Resource calendars, when their team member is going to be available. We're going to talk about, I think, talked a little bit about calendars a couple of times. Project calendars are a little bit different than resource calendars. Resource calendars, who's on vacation, when are they going to be gone. On the project side, a lot of times if we got a planned shutdown or something like that, that's going to be important because people won't be working then. Maybe some new change requests. Maybe we don't have the in-house people we need, so we got to get some outside contractors. And perhaps updates to our resource management plan and cost baseline, especially if we have to spend more to get outside resources. Updates to a lot of documents, new things to add to our lessons learned, maybe some changes in the schedule, updating our resource breakdown structure, resource requirements, risk and stakeholder registers. And now we may have some updates actually going into our OPAs and enterprise environmental factors. 9.4 then is going to be developing the team, where we're trying to determine what kind of skill sets our people have, how to build the team, motivate them, lead the team. We want them to, well, that's the great goal there, achieve high performance and meet the objectives. So we'll be looking at the various competencies of our teams. You know, sometimes we'll have some people that are really good at certain areas, but maybe need some other skill sets. So we'll look at whatever training might be needed. When we're doing team building too, we want to try to build that team. So building trust with the team. I mentioned lowering conflict. You'll see later that conflict is considered a good thing because a lot of times it comes up with better ideas, but we don't want to be fighting all the time or duking it out. And so being able to work together and do problem solving is really good. Want to try to create this cohesive team. And I think that's one of the things in the agile world, I think that's been a good thing because I think that helped bring teams together a lot more because they were doing a lot more decision making and brainstorming on their own rather than having a boss just say, do it this way. Bruce Tuckman had and this is a general management thing, not just for project management, he had this theory about how teams come together: forming, storming, norming, performing, and eventually adjourning. It goes through these 5 steps. A little bit about this, you might see a question or two related to this, not a lot. Forming, we're just coming together, pretty much loosey-goosey. Nobody knows what they're doing. Roles and responsibilities aren't very clear. Members may be just testing out to see what can we get away with and what can we do. Storming, coming together a little bit more, but now we're probably fighting it out a little bit more too. I want this, or we probably have some cliques that are trying to get some power. And we're not real focused on the goals, still dealing with our interpersonal stuff and dealing with emotions and relationships. So at this point, compromise is often needed just to even get anything done. Norming is kind of the idea that we're coming together, we've got more focus on what we want to do, roles and responsibilities are getting clear. Big decisions can be made by the group, smaller decisions may be delegated to sub-teams or individuals. So commitment's getting stronger, we're getting more unified. And the team can help in developing our processes and how we're going to work together. A little bit more respect for the leader. If the leader's been doing good work and could be more of a facilitator or enabler at this point. Forming, we're in the zone now. We're really cruising. We're aware of what and why we're doing this work. Got the shared vision, really focused on achieving our goals, maybe even overachieving them. And the team can work pretty much on their own. Disagreements, problems usually be resolved within the team. So as leaders in this kind of situation, we're more delegators and overseers. Another picture of that with a couple cartoons in there. I like the storming one with the sword and the battle axe or hammer there. Hello. PMC, oh, thank you.
But I really want to remote into your system.
I just switched over to that to do some stuff, and it's been a problem for a while. And
someone's really trying.
Yeah, some of these I think are like automated setups to try to log into whatever VNC is available. I'm surprised it's on this one. 9.4 then is going to be developing the team.
Well, it's on yours to do remote computer management, not schoolwork. But if it's linked all up the same, oops.
They just started setting this up because we were using TeamViewer to be our system for having students logged in remotely too. Lots of any machine basically. And TeamViewer realized that we weren't just a individual. I mean, people could set it up for their individual accounts, but then they realized they keep logging into this one place. You're a business, you should pay for this.
Yeah.
Because we were able to get it for free for forever, basically. And when that decision came down, it's like, okay, do we pay for it or do we use something else? Ultra VNC was promoted as a good way to do it. It's a free setup. But we've had that problem a lot where some random computer group is trying to log into our system. So I guess it's not fully protected or functional that way.
I haven't used VLC since like 2002, 2004,
Yeah.
in between there.
So it's been around a while then.
Oh, it's old. And I used to use it on a PDA called a Sharpsaurus. It was Linux based. And I used to be able to go into my work computer from the train and do stuff. And it was amazing. I mean, it would take like 10 or 15 minutes to do what at the office would take me 35 seconds. But I could do it. And that was unheard of back then.
Wow.
Like, you lock up your AS400 account, that was fine. I had a computer that was set up with VGA quality display, which sucked. But it was dedicated for me to be able to remote into. And it worked. And back then I was testing AT&T's GSM network.
Oh.
So it wasn't even live yet. It was almost live in 2001. That was awesome. A 56K modem. It was a compact flash modem.
56K.
Yep. Imagine logging into a computer and waiting for a VGA display to pop up on 56K. It sucked. But I could do some pretty cool things. And they were emergency actions only. But I was a help desk manager, so I had to do help desk tasks.
Yeah. Inputs to developing the team will be our resource management plan. Give us some specifics on how we're going to reward, train, and discipline people, guide the people. Various documents, lessons learned, team assignments, schedule, resource calendars will be pretty important. That team charter is in play now. And various things coming out of our enterprise and organizational assets. I think a lot of times, our lessons learned from past projects, what we've done with the same group of people or equipment is going to be helpful from how we managed or worked it in the past. Tools and techniques is more like just kind of a checkoff list of some different things. Are we co-located? We got virtual teams. What kind of communication technology do we have? I think it was interesting in my time in Motorola, we started out with SkyTel pagers. These little things.
The big display ones?
Well, no, not the big display ones. These were kind of small, about that big. And they had a little screen in there, a little gray screen, and a keyboard. And
those were awesome.
When I go to a conference call or meeting where we'd be in that conference room, we're going to be sitting there playing with their, pushing numbers and things into their little SkyTel pager, texting with each other. It was funny when we switched over to laptops and using messaging. One of my friends who actually got me hired at Motorola was sitting at the opposite end of the conference room, and I was over here. And the program manager was ripping into the test manager as he had very specifically asked him for some work to be done the previous week, and he hadn't done it. And so he was kind of dancing around. If you were honest and straightforward with the PM manager,
life was better.
It was better.
Yeah.
If you tried to dance around, it wasn't so good. And my friend also worked at UPS before. He had gone to a couple other companies and moved his way up. And so when this was going on, when we were watching this guy get raped over the coals, I said, doesn't he remind you of one of those truck driving managers we had at UPS? And, yeah. So we were messaging back and forth across the conference room. It was kind of fun.
My guys never trusted me. Like some of I had 19 reports, and I didn't use Windows and I didn't use Mac. I used Linux for most of my stuff. And the messaging tool that we used, I had a generic in Linux that could go in, and I would hide myself. So every once in a while, there'd be a group chat with 18, 19 people in it, and I would just chime in. And they'd be like, big brother's in the room, and freak out. It was always fun. I'm like, guys, I really don't have time to babysit you.
Wow.
But they always thought I was.
Some thing about skills. How do we deal with conflict, influence people, motivate them, negotiate at times, and obviously we're trying to build a team that's going to work together well. Recognition and reward is going to be important a lot of times. Training where needed. And we'll be assessing both the team and individuals for the work they're doing, and probably have meetings.
Was that used to be called something with HR also? Because HR would be in our teams like this, making sure that they were the cheerleaders.
I think, in the old days when HR was actually a full department and not outsourced to some other place or down to 3 people or something like that, they probably did more of that kind of thing. There's a little bit about putting together an effective team. We want them to be interdependent with each other, have a reason to work together, commitment to work together. The team as a whole be accountable for the work that we're doing. And as I mentioned, they do think that some competition and conflict is a good thing. A lot of times that can help perk up better ideas. Our first idea might have been great, but maybe there's something better that we could do. And if we can work together in resolving issues and problems internally, that's a great thing too. Here's a little bit more about team building. We need top management support. If they don't give us the people we need or the equipment we need, obviously it's going to be a problem. Get the commitment from the team members. That's where I think that team charter can help in that. Having appropriate forms of recognition and rewards. Now, in the old days, they used to have people that would have a team and they would actually give the team a name. Team whatever. I think that's kind of died down now somewhat, but it used to be kind of a big deal to help.
Like 7 years ago, and then it died out.
Yeah, build that identity thing. Dealing with conflicts in an effective way, building up trust among the team members, having good communication. And on our side of it, we got to really show some good leadership to help keep the team moving. Here's some barriers or problems that we run into a lot of times. People are frustrated. It's not a good political situation. We've got a lot of conflict and competition going on. That can bring about low morale. Doesn't mention it here, but that could also mean more staff turnover too. People, I'm tired of this. I'm out of here. Low motivation levels. Problems with getting work done. We used to hear complaints a lot of times. We have so many meetings, we don't have time to do the actual work. So that could be a problem too.
Isn't that the problem of every project manager though?
Too many meetings?
Yeah.
Sometimes, maybe pretty often, yeah. Some other things, problems for team building, having conflicting goals or ambiguous kinds of things, poor communications, environmental changes. I know Motorola was one of our key things because we reorganized every year and a half, it seemed like. Not having the support from senior management, different agendas for people and the organization. Ultimately, if they don't trust us as project managers, that could be a pretty big problem. I'm not going to read through all these, but these are some various team building activities. I think it's funny, they mentioned donut days in there, offsite activities. When I started Motorola, we had what they call town hall meetings. And very often it was at a hotel, off campus completely. You'd have a nice spread of food to eat. When I started, they were usually half-day meetings. I guess they used to be a full-day meeting with breakfast, lunch, maybe supper. Going through the how the company was doing, how our work was going on. That eventually kind of died down.
We used to have those quarterly.
Yeah.
And then we had them for the different levels of a company too. Because we had the main United Health Group, and then we had Optum, and then we had Optum Tech and Optum RX. So in 1 week, we could have 6 hours worth of those every 90 days.
Wow.
That was a drag. The team chat was always fun during those.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we'd sit there and look for buzzwords or whatever.
Oh.
Count how many times you use a buzzword.
Remember one of the last ones I was in, our program had just tanked, basically. We were late in getting it out. That was good quality, and it was one of the earlier programs I was involved with, and 50 projects in it, I think, something like that. And so the the big boss was up there trying to explain why things didn't go well.
Mhm.
Later, I think he got promoted, so he moved up. I don't know
You
what
described it really well.
happened. Yeah,
The Peter principle.
assessments. Yeah,
That's what I would say.
Yep.
I think he's still with them too, as a matter of fact. Or with, I don't remember, yeah, I think he went back because he was part of the networks group that was sold to Nokia Siemens. I think he's ended up going back to Motorola, what's left of Motorola, working for them.
I know so many people that failed as managers and they turned them into project managers.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, oh, you suck at your job. You couldn't even manage 2 people. You're going to be a project manager. Oh, and you just got a raise.
And now you got 20 people under you.
They're PMs. They didn't actually have direct reports.
Ah, okay.
They
Yeah,
just
that
ran
indirect
meetings.
kind of things, yeah.
Had to tell one lady that she had to dress appropriately to work. I'm like, your boss is going to flip out if you come to work dressed like that.
Hmm.
She'd be hanging out of her clothes.
And the boss didn't,
Oh, the boss would have flipped out. I warned her before she did that.
oh, okay.
When she was her own manager, like when she was the manager, she could do stuff like that. But her new boss, I'm like, I know your team. I support your team. You can't dress like a whore anymore. And she was one of my friends, so I actually used that terminology. And she appreciated it. I'm like, you really have to cover up the girls. It was funny.
Wow.
Yeah, when you have to tell someone to wear a bra to work, that's a fun day. I'm like, you don't want this to go to HR. I'm like, because of the move that you're doing. It was one of those really politically incorrect conversations I had with her.
Mm.
But it saved her job.
Yeah.
It was sad, though. She was really hot.
Mm.
I hated telling her that.
Mm.
I told her that, too.
So while we're developing the team, we'll have some outputs from this, the team performance assessment. I think it's interesting when they talk about team assessment versus individuals. And I know over the years, my experience has been good and bad that way. Sometimes the team would be recognized as a whole, which, if we did well, that's great. But if we had one guy that was like just hanging around and not doing any work, it was kind of weird that he got the same kind of recognition. But then on the other side, individual rewards sometimes weren't always spelled out well. But if we have good assessments and stuff, hopefully we've got some improved competencies and the people have got more training. And ideally we could reduce our turnover. I read a quote just recently, which I thought was interesting, from the Richard Branson, Virgin Air, Virgin whatever guy, saying,
Galactic.
Hmm?
Virgin Galactic.
Yeah,
Galactica.
Galactic.
Virgin Galactic. They're space ventures.
Oh, are they?
I think they're doing well, too. They're doing low orbit space travel for tourists.
Oh.
Yeah.
But they're not actually in space. They're just upper atmosphere,
Upper
and
atmosphere.
it feels like it's weightless.
Yeah, they made some good tests lately. I mean, he keeps saying that they're gonna start taking passengers, but
I thought they did.
not yet. No. He's gonna go. He said he wants to be on the first one.
Well, anyway, the statement I like that he said is, you want to train your people well enough that they could leave the company, but you want to treat them well enough that they want to stay. That's kind of a good way to put it.
He's got a book out. You know what the book is? He wrote. I don't know if he wrote the book, but he wrote it with somebody else. And it came out I think last year, kind of late last year, and it was titled "Finding My Virginity." Was the name of the book. So if you want Richard Branson and you're into Richard Branson, you might want to check out his book.
Not quite sure after that title. If
Yeah, I don't know either.
Go look at that.
Maybe you want to like look at the table of contents.
Table of contents.
And read a few pages or something. But
Don't buy the physical book. Just get it on your Kindle.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Use
it's
the Kindle
okay.
app, and then people don't know what you're reading.
Yeah.
They just put the title on there to catch your eye.
Yeah. That's a catchy title, obviously.
He has he has a pretty good quote. I think I've heard that one before.
Mm-hmm. The outputs, more outputs here, updating our documents, lessons learned. maybe changes in the schedule, team assignments, maybe some updates to our charter even. And then at this point too, we got a lot of new information. Enterprise environmental factors usually isn't an output, but if we got stuff that we're sending off to HR to update, employee records, new training they've got, that would probably go off in that direction. And on the OPA side, we probably will be updating our information on different people and what skills they have, looking to what we can do in the future with it. 9.5 is managing the team. So we've got a lot of things feeding in. So this is the process of tracking what our performance is, giving feedback, resolving issues, managing changes, ultimately to try to get that project out in good fashion. So the big plan, the resource management plan, will feed into this, these various documents, work performance reports. Now we're churning, we're getting work done. So how are we doing? And so we'll be looking at our plan versus actual, looking at the forecast for what work we got left. So scope, schedule, cost information, and verification of scope are going to be important to us. And recognition and rewards. We have some specific HR requirements that are going to feed into that. Team performance assessment we just put together. OPA side, we may have under that the different perks and things that we can use, bonus structures and things like that. Over my years that, we had this great program at one time. We all got these nice fleece jackets. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And over time, the perks and everything kind of trailed down. They were no longer big things. It was funny because when we merged with the other company, we had some of this merchandise that was still sitting in somebody's closet, and they brought it out, put it out on a couple of tables by the cafeteria, and we could go pick up stuff. I got a Post-it note set that was about this tall, 2 of them, that I just almost finished using up now, 6 years later. It was for WiMAX, which was technology that was going to become popular.
I know WiMAX.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
Ended up dying out. So they were of no purpose for that, and definitely no purpose for Nokia Siemens. But so it's kind of funny to get some of that stuff.
That is awesome.
They also had, Motorola used to be the big deal with NFL. They always had the coaches with
they still do
the headsets, but not Motorola now, though.
I thought their headsets right now are Motorola this year.
I don't. Well, maybe it is.
I think this year is Motorola. I noticed those really important things.
I know last year.
You can check it out on Sunday.
Yeah,
Sunday. Saturday and Sunday.
Last year I know they weren't.
Yeah, and I noticed that too.
Yeah.
And just like all their laptops are Microsoft Surfaces.
Surfaces.
Yeah.
So who had it last year then?
I think it was either nothing showing name-wise, or I don't remember now. I just noticed it wasn't.
So it can be a company that has nothing to do with cell phones or communication. It could be some other company.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to pay the most money to have their logo put on the
Be Bud Light for all I know. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm positive they went back to Motorola this year.
Oh.
Because that was one of those things that I noticed in the preseason.
Somebody in marketing at Motorola, what's left of Motorola, said, "Hey, this was a good thing for us. We should do this again."
Yeah.
So they actually put their logo on. They actually supply the headsets too.
The companies buy them, but it's a contract. Like the NFL says, you have to use the Motorola headsets. Like Microsoft says, or the NFL said, you have to use Microsoft Surfaces. Which I felt bad for them.
And the headsets, I know last year the headsets were a little bit slimmer. The ones that were Motorola were.
They're huge.
They were huge. They had a big.
But it's also to cover up your mouth, so they don't have to hold the paper so far.
Yeah, now they're holding their.
Because they're always doing this.
Yeah.
But the headsets are also really big too for that reason. I've been told, at least.
Yeah.
That's a trend in sports, right?
There we go.
Well, that's because there were people that used to take pictures with the good cameras to see playbooks of the coaches. And that's why now they're coming down from the booth and telling them what to do, because the laminated one they have is very limited and basic. They have to hide everything they do.
Yeah. You got good lip readers. They could
Oh yeah,
pull in stuff
Yeah,
too.
they do that in baseball right now.
Yeah.
Right, you watch it, and then they go out on the mound, and
They got all their
and
little.
the pitchers got their gloves up to their
Oh, yeah,
mouths, and
yeah.
the coaches are covering their mouths because they don't want
the
the
lip readers to
opposing
pick it up.
team or somebody up in the booth to read the lips.
and they look for tech also, because remember when you used to watch football, you used to be able to hear what the players would say, like no one would acknowledge it, but all of a sudden you'd hear an F-bomb or something through TV, you'd be like, damn, and that doesn't happen at all anymore. Like, you don't hear any of that stuff.
They still got some of the players mic'd, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Probably
they don't.
Have a button there.
Yeah,
Well, they don't give it to you live, right?
right.
Yeah.
They say, well, here we got this guy mic'd up, and then this is what he did in the first quarter. And it's the third quarter, and of course they've gone through it, and they only got the clean stuff. And it's never very interesting, anyways.
Yeah.
It's like good play, man.
Kind of like they don't show injuries anymore.
Really?
Yeah, they completely, like, someone will be down, they'll be like, player down.
Yeah,
And then they just really quick if there's no blood and guts. But it's like, if someone like bent their leg all bad, they don't show it anymore.
Yeah, they don't want to show them. There might be various reasons for that, right?
So they don't gross out their people that are saying that sport is too violent.
Yeah, or the audience.
And, well, they changed the rules so much now that the scores are going up. Because you're not allowed to hit people anymore.
Yeah.
So the scores are getting high. It's weird.
Anyway, back to this.
Yeah, back.
I don't know how we got on that
Let's go
time.
off
Hold
more,
on. We can bring it back to bonus structures because every time they
Yeah, that's what we
score, they sit there and they get their bonuses. And if they dance too elaborately, they don't get as high bonuses and all that kind of stuff. So,
That's the whole thing about the dance after scoring and stuff is funny to me because a number of years ago they would get penalized if they did anything like even raise their hands, and now they're doing the group dances and everything.
orchestras and stuff. And you're like,
But they still have that penalty, right? Or did they take
no, it's gone.
I think they took it away.
Well,
Would see the whole crew out there dancing in the end zone.
okay, so while we're on the NFL and we're talking about rules, maybe you follow it, and I don't. There's a new rule this year, I think, when you kick off and the team that kicks off kicks it into the end zone, not out of bounds.
Automatic
Right?
25.
It goes to the 25 now, right?
It
It used
sucks.
to be the 20, but now they moved it to the 25.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that new for this season?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I have the best partner ever. She knows football inside out.
Oh.
So she could be a reporter.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I almost brought in, she made some Kenyan sweet rolls, which are these biscuits that you fry. They're totally healthy. But the ones that were left weren't the pretty ones. The kids took all the pretty ones.
Oh.
I wasn't going to bring in burnt crap. Because they're like cinnamony and they're like silver dollar size, but like 1.5 inches thick.
Oh, wow.
They're really good, but if you've never had, Kenyan food, that's what she did during halftime. She
Wow.
made those on Sunday.
That's cool.
Yeah, but we just had too many of them. The only ones left are like the burnt ones.
Well, kids are smart. They took the good
Yeah.
ones.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things feeding into us here, various documents, work performance information, our reports, showing the forecast and our plans, team assessment, how we've looked at improving the team, bringing them together. And on the OPA side, it mentions those perks and bonus structures and things again. Tools and techniques. We're talking about 5 techniques for conflict management, and we'll have more on this coming up. But withdraw or avoid a problem, smooth or accommodate, compromise, reconcile, force or direct, collaborate or problem solve. And we're going to have a little more coming up on those. Decision making, we want to try to focus on the problem and not the people or their emotions. Emotional intelligence might help us in helping the team, settle down and manage their angst or their anger. Different ways of influencing. Active listening. This is something I learned about back in the 70s. I had some empathy workshops, and communication skills workshops. And a lot of what I realize is I don't always do this either, but if you got somebody that's really anxious and angry or whatever, and they're talking to you, rather than fixing the problem, it's good to listen to them for the whole thing. Now, I'm sometimes thinking about how to fix it before the person's done talking, but I might miss something if I'm not really focused on them. And they could probably sense it too. They would say, well, you're not really listening to me, or you're not attuned with me. Even with my wife, we go through this sometimes.
I always say, hold on, and I'll take a note. And I'll be like, don't forget where you're at. Let me just write something down.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I learned in the Catholic Church. It was through, what the hell was it? Encounter. Something encounter. Yeah. Marriage encounter. Because we had a marriage encounter group. Yeah. And, oh yeah, I would sit there, and if we were in the middle of doing something and she was just going on too long and mansplaining something, I'd be like, time out, write a note, okay, go.
That's a good idea, yeah.
I do that with employees too.
Mm-hmm. So that's empathy, right? You were talking about that.
Yeah, empathy as opposed to sympathy, where, or the other side of not active listening is getting ready to fix the problem, not sensing, the emotions of the person. And
yeah. It's interesting you bring that up, because based on my experiences, especially out in the industry, I think that's an employee is having a issue or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an important part of it, because I think that sometimes they want somebody that they can talk to, and they will just listen to what
mm-hmm.
they have to say about their issue. It just makes them, I guess, feel like their voice is being heard.
Yeah.
And feel better.
Yeah.
If somebody else, like a manager or something, is willing to spend time and listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important part of it, right?
Yeah, even if they're just venting.
Even if they're just venting, and the manager can't ultimately really do anything about it. Yeah.
Or maybe can.
Or maybe can or something, but as long as they feel like they can communicate with them or something like that, and the voice is here is a big part of it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to be underestimated.
I used to take people, like, if they were losing their shit, I'd be like, let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
My buddy Will, he was one of my reports. He would lose his mind sometimes. And we'd either go for a walk, I'd take him to lunch. One time I ended up taking him to the gym and giving him boxing gloves and having him hit a bag, like the big bag, for like a half hour. And we talked while he was doing it. But we were lucky there was no one else in the gym. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. But, oh yeah, because the people in the gym, I'm like, you guys don't hear anything that's being said, right? So that worked better once we bought that company that ran the gym.
Here's a little bit about those 5 areas they mentioned in that earlier slide. Collaborating or problem solving. We talked about that term a little bit in the quiz the other day too. Multiple viewpoints, perspectives. What you want to do is come up with a solution everyone agrees to. Then if you can do that, come up with a good consensus, that's kind of considered a win-win situation. Compromising, reconciling may be our best solution, but usually both parties had to give up something, so it's considered a lose-lose. Withdrawing or avoiding, it's kind of like retreating or postponing from the problem right now. We've got other important things to work on, picking your time for the battles, what place to do it can be important a lot of times. Smoothing, really trying to emphasize on what we agree on and not the differences, and build on those things. Forcing, okay, we got to do it this way. And forcing really is a win-lose thing. I'm telling you to do it this way, go do it. And I remember one of my managers used to crack me up because he talked about working with his team was like herding cats, which I hadn't heard in a long time, that term, but I can just imagine it as people all over the place. And it's, okay, here's what we're going to do, help them refocus and get the work done. A little bit about conflict. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Often comes up for a lot of different reasons. We don't have enough people or resources, schedule priorities, going on with individuals' personal work styles. As I mentioned earlier, it's often beneficial because a lot of times we can come up with better ideas and better ways of doing the work. So we want to really deal with that in a good way. Look at alternatives. make it a team issue. And we want to try to keep it on the issue and not on the personalities of the people involved. And best if we can work through disagreements before they become World War III, major conflict. So here's some approaches. I'd like to have the team members work it out among themselves, but if they can't, escalate it to us then. And we want to try to listen to them, that active listening again. Try to separate the emotions from the issues. And there's that idea of trying to build on the things we agree on. If there's one small area that we just totally are against and fighting over, but if we agree on 90% of what we're doing, let's build on the 90%. Maybe we can not override, but come up with a good solution for that 10% we don't agree on. So the output of this may be some new change requests. Maybe we can't get all the staff to work together and we need to get somebody new in. So maybe some updates to our resource plan. Maybe we decided on some new roles and responsibilities or new training we're going to need. And that could affect our schedule and cost baselines. Updates to our documents, issue log, lessons learned, project team assignments. I can mention an issue log. A lot of times in my world, it was like big problems and, this risk occurred, now let's get it fixed. But I think an issue log could also include things like, Bill doesn't agree with Mary and they're constantly disputing things and disrupting the whole group. That could be something in the issue log and how you're going to work through it.
I kind of found some of the best project managers didn't get along with people always the best. Mm. And because of that, their points were made better, which was just a weird dynamic. Might have just been that I worked in a hostile work environment. I don't know.
So they were more directive then, or more
authoritarian.
Yeah.
But it was, everything happened up to a point, and then this is what you have to do according to this timeline. Did you do it? Mm-hmm. Instead of skirting issues, just being direct.
Yeah.
And they were some of the most effective ones that we had. Mm-hmm. They weren't the nicest people.
You look at Apple and Steve Jobs.
He was the king.
He was the king. We're doing it my way.
Yep.
And a lot of times he was right and had a good vision and ideas. Not always. They didn't always succeed in everything they did, but they did.
When you want something to simply be pretty on a motherboard, that's pretty anal.
Yeah, but Steve Jobs was basically a jerk, from what I understand.
Yeah.
That's Wozniak.
Yeah, that's Wozniak. Right? And personally and professionally, he was, he was a jerk. Mm-hmm. From what I understand, he did some things that were unethical and immoral and stuff. And then when he was professionally, at one point, he wasn't even part of Apple, right? He got moved out of Apple, right?
Yeah. But it was his pigheadedness that ended up killing him, because he thought he could guru his cancer away instead of doing real treatments. And the last year and a half of his life was scrambling to do real treatments for cancer, which had already hit stage 4.
He had his strengths. Well, I understand, but he had his weaknesses, and there was other guys. Steve Wozniak, you bring him up. Steve Wozniak was kind of like my understanding is kind of like the engineering brains of the whole thing.
The fact
Steve Jobs,
programmer.
Steve Jobs didn't make it through college, right? He went to a community college for a year or something, and then he dropped out.
Mm.
But that gives also people that work at Apple a really false sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
If you ever want a really weird workforce, the people that work at Trader Joe's. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a manager, at Trader Joe's, you start off making $65,000 to $85,000. If you're the captain, which is basically a store director, you're making 120 on up to like 250. Uh-huh. And you have to hire people that you wouldn't think you should normally hire. Sometimes they're smelly and they're weird, but they have to be artsy because all their labels are handmade. They actually have an artist or two at every store to make every price tag.
One of my friends was one of those artists. Actually, two of our friends.
Did they go to work stoned all the time? That's one of the things that happens there.
Yeah.
They have employees that are always bombed off their asses. And that's part of the culture there. And the employee base is so different. I was talking to a manager there the other day. I was driving him to work and he was like, yeah, I came from a different form of retail and the people that are my best employees, I would never have hired. And you can't, like if someone smells really bad, you can tell them, hey, before you come to work tomorrow, shower.
Shower, yeah.
Or hand them some fresh clothes. Hopefully that works. And some deodorant, spray deodorant. I'm like, man. He goes, but that's what you have to expect here. And they're the best employees. Because you can have
employees, yeah.
Well, people ringing up the cashiers, they can make up to $25, $26 an hour. It's like, holy shit, you work at a grocery store. They make all their own products and everything is profit. And except for their wines. It's not all their brand. But I was like, damn. And he's, yeah, you should work for us. I don't want to do that. Managers, I mean, 60 to 85,000 a year for 60 hours a week. And it's a descending schedule. So you start at 16 hours and you work your way down to like 4 over a 2-week period. Like, that ain't for me. I'm too old for that retail thing.
I know when I was thinking about semi-retiring kind of work, I thought about not Trader Joe's, although we do have one that we go to quite often, and you're right, it's kind of a quirky crew.
They're weird.
I thought about working for Starbucks, and my wife said, no, you die there because it's actually too much work and too busy and too crazy, which is probably true.
Full benefits.
Yeah, full benefits.
For part-time.
That was a nice thing.
I had a team member of mine that was in Puerto Rico. He had a 10-year-old and his new girlfriend was pregnant and our deductible was massive. I'm like, dude, work at Starbucks. We were in a team meeting, phone chat. And I'm like, if this is gonna put you at a financial burden, get a part-time job at Starbucks. I'm like, and I'm not kidding. Their benefits are better than ours. So you use theirs as your primary, ours as your secondary, and your out-of-pocket will be really minimized.
Yeah.
And that's when other people on the team began chiming in. He ended up doing it. And then right before she gave birth, we closed his office, moved him to Orlando, and he was able to transfer Starbucks to Orlando. And he's like, once he hit Florida, the benefits got even better.
Wow.
And the benefits were through United Health Group, I think at the time.
Oh.
And he's like, these benefits rock. He's like, I didn't know the company had good benefits. I'm like, just as long as you don't work for them.
Yeah, I remember one of the companies I worked for, we had United Health Group for a while, and the benefits were really good.
And
the company benefit programs were obviously different than what you saw internally.
Yeah, I know someone that works for Anthem, and she was complaining about her benefit package. She's a director. And I'm like, well, ours is based on how much money you make, how much they're going to charge you, and you only have your choice of 3 plans, and our low deductible plan was $1,900. And we compared plans, and her most expensive plan was less expensive than, and hers were bad. Was
better than yours.
Yeah, better than our cheapest plan, like more cost effective. It was just hideous.
Wow.
But yeah, the blues, I mean, when you work for a healthcare company, you're not going to get the best benefits, which is backwards.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right. We're talking a little bit here about different management styles, leadership styles, directing, telling people what to do, facilitating, kind of coordinating what goes on between people, coaching, and some of these kind of overlap a little bit too. We may use different ones at different times, or maybe multiple ones. Supporting, autocratic, Steve Jobs again, or sometimes, when you got the herd of cats, you got to be more directive. Consultative, kind trying to perk ideas up, come up with, brainstorming, getting good suggestions, consensus, ideal thing, we come together and agree, delegating, setting goals, letting the team do the work. One of my UPS managers cracked us up that way. We called him the Teflon man. His work would come into his office and immediately would slide off his desk and into our office to get the work done. For a long time, his desk was perfectly clean and nothing on it. And this is kind of weird. What's he doing? It seemed like everything came, any kind of directive or work came through him, but didn't stay there. Eventually, he did do a little bit more than just slide stuff onto us. Laissez-faire, French word that I'm probably mispronouncing. Very hands-off. Go ahead and let the team do the work. My last manager at Motorola/Nokia Siemens was like that. She was really good, but she stopped even having weekly staff meetings because I think it was that important, I guess. And she had a team of program managers working for her and pretty much trusted what we were doing and that we were doing good work. And she knew the big picture and what was going on. I did get concerned once in a while, though, that she didn't know what I was doing. So sometimes I would actually set up a little meeting with her just to give her an update on what was going on.
So are you familiar with the 1 minute manager style of managing?
1 minute manager?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Which one of these would be 1 minute managing? Coaching?
Perhaps.
Or facilitating? Might be facilitating.
Yeah. Brett's gonna have a little kind of quiz thing coming up on this too. Here's some different powers that we could have. Formal or legitimate, based on our title or position. So it says I'm the PM, we're gonna do it this way, or the CFO wants this audit by Friday. The results. A reward, pretty straightforward. We're giving rewards out for doing good work. Penalty, the opposite. Putting somebody in the penalty box or put him on a PIP, right? PIP. Expert, they got an expert in a particular area. Referent, this used to be, I think, the main word in Chicago, where you report to somebody in higher authority or get hired by your uncle. There were certain departments in the city, I know, that were almost all one family or a couple families.
Didn't that used to be called your Chinaman?
Under what?
For when you worked for the city, it wasn't the referent actually called your Chinaman?
Chinaman?
Yeah, is the person that got you into wherever you wanted to go.
Could be. Not that familiar with that term, but that
That was 70s and 80s terms.
Yeah.
Died off in the 90s because of political correctness.
A little bit about rewards and recognition. Should be tied to our performance based on maybe some pre-established results that we're expecting. Things that are in control of the team. That's where over the years I sometimes balked at what was going on because it wasn't always, stuff on the higher level may have caused a disaster that had nothing to do with what we're doing on the team, so we wouldn't get rewarded. But if it was more directly related, that was good. We need to consider differences in culture, individual preferences, team and individual rewards. And the rewards should be given on a timely basis. That's, I think, a good thing too. If we did something great 6 months ago, we didn't get any kind of recognition until now, it's like, what? Where did I miss something for the last 6 months?
Welcome to Walgreens.
We have a little quiz here then. What we want to do is match these up with the things on this side. Now we got 5 categories here and 4 things here, so we're not going to use everything in that list. And you know what? We haven't had a break yet, have we?
No, we take a little break.
How about a break? Yeah.
I guess not for a while.
And we'll go through this and match up these categories.
Crack and fall apart.
Yeah.
I love that feeling of I've had my heaters on too long and now I can't focus. My daughters are giving me a hard time. My partner, she has, yeah, lots of people. They're like, oh, I thought you were making fun of it because it's so big. No, I needed to see.
I get it, Dad.
Yeah. That's fun.
You say you have triplets?
Yeah. 7-year-old triplets.
7-year-old triplets.
Spring, summer, and autumn. Yeah, I've heard of it.
Sounds like you might get your daughter's flowers. Rosemary, magnolia, and lavender. And they got all the two, and they actually gave lavender right off the bat. Lindy.
Oh, then, if her name is Lindy, you guys have to go to Lindy's Landing in Wakanda and pick up a shirt. Totally weird. Just to have a shirt with your name on it. Basically my sister-in-law, she's seasoned. And then, one of my, partners, family members, is here. So we have every season positive recovery. They're fun about it. So one of my daughters is really cool. Autumn thinks it's cool that my first husband used to come to college. It's like awesome. Well, I'm glad. It's easy. It's easy. Yeah. I don't spell it in any strange ways or. But age, no age. That's the big question. That's it.
I have a friend that went to drop the age.
Huh?
Mine's just as good.
Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan. Mine would be, I've seen spellings of John, like, they're going, drop H. The guy who's spelled J-H-A-N.
I had an Indian that was recording to me, whose first name is Smith. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. He did perform that maybe Smith was a Shakespeare.
I thought it was awesome. Like how the guy, years back, he was basically paper certified in what he did, and he wasn't really good at it. And I was looking at his paperwork, and his certs had his name on it, with the signature. And I'm like, where did you get certified? And it was back in India. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And I was able to let him go because he's all cited records. And I actually got the certificate. I'm like, that's not the signature in any way, shape, or form. And this guy can't do anything well. Once he lost the cert, I was able to let him go. As long as he was certified, I could let him go. Yeah. This is when you press that button. Oh, new DDA job. I was a driver's assistant for Christmas season, 97, 98. Wait, 96, 97, 98. Yeah. And even just working those 2 months, the driver was picking up right outside California, and I was living in California. So he picked me up right in front of the distribution center there, and Lincoln shower, basically out there. And working for 2 months, I would stay with like the restaurants and stuff with the female owners and the owners.
Yeah. So they're about the same driver as someone who's driver.
Yeah.
They rode for 3 years. They rode Glenview, North Road, and when it managed, of course, I didn't have those universities. So,
Yeah.
watch the guys do it with like a canter whiskey or something from one of those.
Oh.
Well,
The guys that make nail guns, the ammo nails, nail guns. I don't remember who makes them. So it was one of our. It was the last stop of the day because they had snow packages that were like big. It was like the max that you could have.
Yeah.
And it was this big, and they were rounds of nails. And they were explosive. The kind of thing that you couldn't transport the way they used to back then, nowadays. And there was always a last stop. And I just remember my driver, his name was Ruben. All 3 years I did it, his name was Ruben. And he was telling me when he first got there, he stacked everything up on the same side of the truck.
Oh,
And the whole truck went like this. And he had to stop and rebalance the truck. But, yeah. So did you drive? Was it the Ford manual? Ford?
Yeah.
He would drive that thing, and I swear he was a bunch. But because of that, I had a Ford Ranger, 95 Ford Ranger. So, okay, first year I always needed a clutch. But I could find that sweet spot. Was good inside. And then that was cool. I didn't know you could do that until I saw him do it every day.
Those trucks were so simple.
Mm-hmm.
They had no, they were totally stripped down. So, remember one day I had my starter, I was out on and it came out, pulled it out.
Oh, we actually replaced the starter?
Replaced the starter, and then like, at the time I was pretty close, the center I worked out. So, Glenview was right. You get it pretty close.
Yeah.
So amazing. The engines have been so simple.
Starter. Replaced the starter on a Hummer. And the starter on a Hummer, like the military starter, 101 pounds. And really hard to get.
Yeah.
So, this is the way it happened. You find the lowest ranking member of the mechanics, come in, kneels it, and it's right above his head. And then the mechanic, okay, the other guy, the private was a mechanic, but then the real mechanic would come in and put it together. If you were unlucky, 45 minutes. Yeah, I learned that one really quick. Never. Because I go, like, hey,
Oh, was it 45 minutes?
yeah, took me once. I'm never doing that one again. I just saw a full-size Hummer, not H2, not H3 the other day, and it looked brand new. Someone must have bought that. I would only own something like that if I actually could make my own biodiesel. I was talking to someone, and I'm like, because I actually enjoy driving the daily because it's not a corporate environment. It's fun. You get to meet interesting people. Like, my ideal situation with that would be if I could get the Tesla X, which is the SUV, with the windows in the back, you can sit up and eat. So, and it's a luxury vehicle, I mean, for $80,000, sure. But, so if you get that, and then you get this charging station home, and then you make your house solar, you work for free. Like, everything would be able to do some profitability. That would be useful. Make my house more compact. I would love to do so. Yeah, well, you sit there and get it for, it would take like 4 or 5 years for the papers up. In the end, it's going out of pocket for you to end up to be about $25. But it's, four factors, yeah, all of that. On my stove is my power. My house is a room house. I use that house as my office. And every once in a while, well, I can also monitor Wi-Fi from anywhere, from my phone, or I connect with it. So I can log in and see if I'm connected. And, or I'll just turn off. My daughter won't go there. That's how I get her to dinner. I turn off, on the router, I turn off the internet to her, and you can hear her screaming in her room. And then she'll be like, what? Dinner. Yep.
We need to do with our granddaughters. They're watching something and.
They never stop.
Yeah, they don't even listen. They're so focused on that little iPad.
Yep.
Watching whatever show it is.
I get it.
They actually pause it and they look at it and talk it.
Good question for you. What is that? Does it require a key? Oh, it does. Why is that? Not that I would use it, but the men's bathroom does.
Safety issues, I guess.
You know?
This is funny because in Northbrook, Schaumburg, going to washroom isn't locked. In Gurnee, it was locked hard. I began to do more with safety issues, predators or something.
I see. But the men are okay.
They're okay. We can have predators come in.
We can have predators come in. We can get all sorts of riffraff and trouble into the men's bathroom while we're there.
Yeah.
They don't care, but the women, it has to be locked up. Huh?
Yeah, we did. Homeless guys sitting out in the men's room, but not in the women's room. Yeah, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I just saw the key out there, and I was like, and I turned it over. It was faced out toward us as women.
Yeah.
So that wasn't what I expected. I expected it was like the key to something else, some closet or something like that. And it was women. I was like, oh, well, there's no key to the men's bathroom because I use it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It's interesting that I wonder what this has to do with or impacted by the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And I mean, in a sense, that's actually protecting women from predators.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah.
Of course, there could be a predator in an office that would still be a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just asking. I was curious that they wouldn't have one for the men. But it could be a result of all of that stuff or something like that. But, you know, I was driving in this morning on Cermak, and I was heading west here. That's how I get here. And there was a sign that says Oak Brook. You know, it says when you get in Oak Brook, there's one of these signs, it's kind of green background, white text. It said Oak Brook, and it said population 7,900. I didn't realize. It caught me a little bit. If you would have asked me, I didn't know. If you would have asked me how many people lived in Oak Brook, I would have guessed something like maybe I would take a stab. It's like 20,000 people or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only like 7,900 people.
It's really a small town.
Really?
But since it was set up by the Butlers and set up to be this fancy little town, you know, you can see south of here if you look out the windows. Most of the houses are probably $1.5 million, $2 million houses. And it's kept small.
I see.
And they've done that by really limiting things. I mean, even it was funny when Oak Brook Towers was built, Oak Brook Towers, that broke a bunch of the rules that they would have had for Oak Brook, the city of Oak Brook. And so Oak Brook Terrace kind of sprawls out to the west a little bit. But it's got the big tower and some other stuff, which the city of Oak Brook wouldn't have allowed. I can imagine that the office, I guess this is Oak Brook.
This is Oak Brook.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not Oak Brook Terrace. This is Oak
Right,
Brook.
this is Oak Brook. We're pretty tall here, but apparently they allowed the taller, maybe they didn't originally allow the taller.
Yeah, they may have relaxed it
Yeah.
somewhat. But this is, it is operating. I was a little surprised that there was only a population of 7,000. I thought it would be higher.
Yeah, it's just how many $1 million homes we have here.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, this is actually Oak Brook, so
Yeah.
they may have relaxed it because I know this is the 9th floor.
Right.
I
And we got a
think this
few more
building may
above
have
us.
10 or 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, because when I get in the elevator and I can't say I have to hit 9 when you come up here. Actually, when I'm in the elevator, I accidentally hit the alarm button on my back. apparently, it didn't really do much. In this, I thought security was going to show up or something. As soon as it went off, there's some guy came into the elevator. I was like, oh, it's a security guy. I've got to explain to him how I hit the alarm button.
Yeah.
But no, I was just some guy who wanted to go up to the 10th floor or something. But wow, got out of that one. Okay.
Hey, we got some matching to do here. I want every module to have a code walkthrough. I need to see the review sheets before I allow the work to proceed. That facilitating, directing, delegating, coaching.
First one is delegating.
This is management, right? These are management styles?
Yeah.
Is that what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Because it says resource staffing.
Exercise, yeah. That's how we're dealing with
Okay.
our people here.
So is the first one directing or delegating?
I think it's directing.
Is it directing?
Yeah. That's a good risk to consider. Does anyone have other concerns with this approach?
Okay, so one of these management styles is out, right?
Yeah,
Because
one's gonna
there's-
be left over because we
there's
have 5
4
things there and 4 bullets.
Okay, so we already used directing, so we can't, it's not directing.
Yeah, I saw only one-on-one, I think. I think the next one's probably more of a facilitating one.
Facilitating?
Yeah.
You guys figure this out and let me know what you decide. Whoosh, that's my Teflon man.
Is it? Okay.
That's delegating. Yes, we could skip that step. However, if things go wrong, we could lose 3 months of work and jeopardize the contract. We need a decision that everyone agrees with.
Okay, you
Consensus.
skipped the third one though.
No, I didn't.
You guys figure
That was
this
when I
out
said,
and
whoosh,
let me know.
Teflon man.
That's delegating.
That's delegating.
Okay, well, I was back on the second one.
Oh,
The
that's
second one is facilitating.
facilitating.
Oh, the third one was delegating?
Yeah.
Oh,
And then the
okay.
last one is consensus.
Consensus, yeah.
Okay.
We got one more coming up, one more
Sorry.
set. Now this time we got 5-on-5, so we'll probably match them all up.
All right.
You miss one more deadline, they'll have to put you on probation.
Penalty.
Penalty box, yep. Yeah, it's a silly request, but he's the boss's nephew.
That's the referent one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's referent. She has implemented wireless technology in several platforms. He's perfect for leading the architecture team.
Expert.
As project manager, I require you to submit test results to Keyway.
Formal.
And you're our best consultant, so this year you're gonna get a sizable raise.
Reward.
Reward. Yep.
We had a department that they broke everything they worked on. And yet they were always getting what they called Rockstar Awards.
Oh
It
boy.
was so annoying because with it came like a $10,000 bonus. And this 5-person team, everyone had gotten a Rockstar Award within 2 years. And they were taking up all the Rockstar Awards, so no one on my team can get them.
Wow.
And yeah, that sucked. That gets rid of your motivation.
Yeah, so this next section is about motivating, especially when we're in a functional organization or weak matrix and don't have a lot of authority and control over the people. We got sign their paychecks, take the bonuses. A lot of times, understanding how to motivate people is going to be important. We're going to look at 5 different theories, and I had originally taken one out of this because it wasn't in PMBOK this year, but Rita still talks about it, so I've added it back in. So we're going to talk Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Hertzberg's motivational hygiene theory, McGregor's theory of X and Y, Broom's expectancy theory, and McClellan's theory of needs. So I learned about this way back in the 70s. I think this came out even earlier than that. But Maslow was a psychologist that saw that we have these kinds of things going on: basic physical needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and then self-actualization. I even used to kind of bristle at this even in the old days. I just read an article that said this was a bunch of hogwash too, because people a lot of times have different needs at various levels.
So it changes all the time.
Yeah.
But that was what Maslow said.
What Maslow said, and it's kind of the idea too that everyone's getting better and better. Well, we know not everyone's getting better and better.
Well, you can get better and better, and
You
all of a
can.
sudden,
Right.
you could be at self-actualization and all of a sudden be knocked off your high horse, lose everything, go to jail, and all of a sudden be down at the base level again.
Yeah.
So it comes
They
back.
could be up there and, you know, you have a heart attack.
Yep.
Well, that's not saying it's self-actualization then. So, but I just the whole premise that we're all getting better and better was like that humanistic idea that we're just all improving. Well, we've had more wars and rumors of wars and killings. Well, look, Chicago with killings, every place with killings and stuff. Are we getting better and better?
But it's not.
Potential is there, but
But it's not for the entire society. This is individualistic.
Yeah.
Or is this saying for the actual whole organization?
well, I think the theory was that this is for everybody getting better and better. It's kind of like the humanistic psychology approach, which is not
Then
quite-
you would have learned about it in sociology, not psychology then.
that everyone's getting better and better.
But it wasn't. It was
Right.
psych, not soc.
Yeah. So some problems with that. Anyway, Hertzberg's motivational theory kind of split things into two categories: hygiene and motivational factors. Hygiene, basic good work conditions, life balance, some job security, you know, pretty good general things. Okay, we get general satisfaction out of that, and maybe not dissatisfied with, you know, what we're doing. Motivational, I saw as, you know, those things that would press us forward: sense of personal achievement, status, recognition, opportunities for growth and advancement. Those could be things that would motivate us and make us want to do more. Theory X and Y, I kind of learned about, well, before UPS, but I knew about it more at UPS. I thought we had all Theory X managers there. They did work on getting more people-oriented, and it's interesting because with 300,000 people, we figured you'd have to do some people work along the way. But the Theory X idea is that, you know, you really have to keep on your people. They're lazy, they're bums, they're not going to do anything unless you push them. On the opposite extreme, I think, is Theory Y, which is kind of assuming everyone can be creative and do really good work. So if we set up a good environment for them, yeah, they'll do good and keep getting better. Most companies are probably somewhere in between, but, you know, it seemed like with Theory X, we just had, we're a truck driving company, right? Truck driving managers. Not politically correct, not, you know, more dictators and demanding and stuff on us than. So here's a fuzzy picture. I don't think it was that fuzzy before, but it's looking fuzzy, talking about, you know, whoa, Theory X, gotta watch out. Boss is gonna be honest all the time. Theory Y, you know, we're a more open environment, we can do more, be more fulfilled in what we're doing, really like our work. Broom's expectancy theory is sort of similar to some of the other things, but what it said is people tend to be highly productive and motivated. I don't think you have this in your book.
No, I don't
So I
think
gave you a
we
handout.
have McGregor's Theory X and Y, and then we go to McCallum's.
Right, so I gave you a handout for this. It's just the one-page thing that has a little bit of stuff on it. So if we know what we do is going to lead to successful results and good rewards, we might be more motivated to be more productive. So told we're doing excellent work. I know if this was true for me too. If I was given some attaboys, it didn't even have to be a financial reward, but an attaboy. I probably wanted to keep doing good and do better.
It had to be coming from someone that actually meant it though.
Oh yeah, not just a blah, blah, blah kind of thing.
Yeah.
The reverse of this, though, Broom thought was true too. If we don't see any carrot or light in the end of the tunnel or good things down there, we'll probably tail off. I think that was kind of my case at UPS. It was more of a struggle just to go to work when things were not that great there. McClellan's theory of needs, or acquired needs theory, is kind of interesting to me. It's just something new in the last edition of talking about achievement, affiliation, and power. Achievement, there's certain people that just like to be in the group and get work done. Just being in the group a lot of times will make them want to do more. I'm sorry, that's the second one. Mixed them up now. Achievement's really, we do good stuff, we'll get recognition for it, be rewarded. Affiliation is more like the group person, likes to be in the group, more interested in getting group approval than getting necessarily individual recognition. They work good in groups. First person, I want to say that that's an introvert and an extrovert, but there's a little bit of that maybe in there too. Power, and this is power, I think, in the good sense, that some people are good at organizing things and directing and getting things moving, leading the teams. So that's one of our key desires and needs. That can be a good thing too. So it's not talking about, power corrupts, all power, a lot of power really corrupts. But, on the good side, what can we do with power? We can do some good things. Really bring the team together and be good at leading the team. A little bit about meeting management. I think we touched on this a little bit before too. We should have a policy for it. Only call meetings when you really need to have them. So your point about project managers having too many meetings, no time out here. Maybe we don't need that many. Clear purpose for the meeting, specific agenda, you want to follow it, get people involved in it, but have a specific start and end time to the meeting, end on time, get the minutes out as quickly as possible, and any follow-up assignments or action items, get those carried out. I think I might have mentioned earlier, when I started work, our weekly status meetings for the program went 3.5 hours. It was crazy. And it was a lot of blah, blah, blah about stuff that really, okay, it was going well, great.
Did you have to attend the whole 3.5 hours, or if you just?
Well, it's usually a conference bridge, so you'd be at your desk, which is also the funny thing, is if we get around to a certain person and their topic, and they were obviously not paying attention, doing emails or something else, they'd have to ask for the question to be repeated.
Yeah, I know. Right now is the busy time for United Health Group, and there's a go live call twice a day for 90 minutes each.
Wow.
And there's about 400 people on it. It's like, that's not productive at all. I was actually talking to one of my friends yesterday while she was on that call. I'm like, oh, how's your call going?
Don't know, I'm not listening to it.
Yeah. Her headset was in her lap.
Wow. So I say, some of those, we eventually wised up, and basically, I remember in particular one project manager that would go into great detail and talk about how well his project was doing, blah, 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 going on and on and on. It's like, okay, that's nice. We don't need to spend all this time on it. Like I say, we eventually wised up. The project's going well, great, keep going. If you're in trouble, need some help, let's talk about it, see what we can get you some more resources or escalate it if we need to. And the meeting went from 3.5 hours to maybe an hour, hour and a half a lot of times. Of course, we were also shrinking down then, so instead of 50 projects, maybe we had 30 projects and smaller ones. So inputs, the big plan, some plans in it, lots of documents. Work performance information, we're monitoring control now, so we've got a lot of data coming through. I think I've said this before, monitoring control is seen as like that start to end process group, but that being said, we're doing most of the work in execution. That's also going to be where we're doing a lot of our monitoring too. Tools and techniques, we'll be looking at our data and analyzing it. Maybe looking at, I think first two may be lesser, but we're going to be looking at performance and trend analysis for sure. We're getting off track on our staffing plan. Using skills, negotiating a lot of times with our team in ways to influence the team. And problem solving, I think these are kind of listed more in like a chronological order. We'll ID a problem, define it better, investigate what went on there, analyze how to work with it, solve it, come up with some kind of solution, and then check that solution to see if it actually worked. Outputs of this, work performance information, maybe some new change requests, updates to our plans and sub-plans and the baselines, updates to our documents. And that's into resource management. And next will be communications management. But before we get there, we've got a quiz. Actually, PMBOK doesn't talk much about those motivational theories, but Rita has a section in her book, which actually I got on the top of the quiz. I might have mentioned in one of the handouts, maybe not. 385 to 387 is all about motivational theories. Thanks.
Number 8 is awesome.
Yeah. These should go in order.
Yeah.
Love machines. Put it on your machine. On your machines.
You guys called about getting like licenses for every machine or?
It's on the server.
Yeah, we don't need Microsoft Office on these machines. If people log in from home and have like on their laptop, Microsoft 2010, and we're using 16,
Yeah.
will they have problems using it, pulling that down?
No, can use it. It's,
Will they be doing it within their profile though?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's because it's stored in local machine on MITS. They are not using it on their own machine. It's just access a machine home.
Right, that's where some students have had problems in the past. That's why with TeamViewer it was okay, they could log in.
We don't need
Don't need TeamViewer. Ultra PNC was causing some trouble today too, it was actually popping up requests while I was sharing it.
we are going to start the algorithm zeros.
Okay. Mr. Adam here said he used that back in 2002.
Yeah, 2001, 2002.
Sure. Having Microsoft classes going on right now. Geometrics and circuit board are two of the tools we use for that
No,
class.
this is, it was a son, nothing is just delete it. Sorry, don't worry.
I don't mind moving those two.
No, this is just on the desktop for this user.
Mhm.
The new user just to access for tomorrow class. So I want everything clean.
Mhm.
You can just access to this machine.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor and copy this document. There's things you can do.
On break or
No,
maybe not, huh?
this one Adam comes back, we can go ahead and finish going through the quiz.
Okay.
Till then, I guess we're on break.
Okay.
It's just a new class starting here tomorrow.
Is there?
Yeah.
In here?
Not tomorrow, Saturday.
Oh, it's Saturday.
That's right, we're done for the week. Okay, Saturday.
This week's a little messed up because
Yeah.
we had the holiday.
Yeah,
Because at some point I was thinking actually Wednesday was Monday.
I got thrown out to him Wednesday. I didn't have anything to do, so it was like it was a Saturday in a way. I was
Yeah.
like, wait, no, it's not.
For a few times on Wednesday, I actually thought it was Monday.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, wait, it's not Monday, it's actually Wednesday. Yes, today is Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
Friday.
Okay, when you guys are ready, we can go through this quiz.
I'm gonna stand up for a little while.
It's fine.
You okay?
Yeah.
Stretch.
I have a military networking group that meets the second Tuesday of the month, and they were just sent out their invite. Just got on that thing. That's a good thing. They also have free food at their events. That's kind of nice. Even if nothing else goes well, at least there's free food. And it's at decent places because it's at Prime, which is rib plate or steak place in Gurnee, or it's at Westwood in Schaumburg.
I've seen Prime. I haven't heard about Westwood.
I think it's called Westwood.
Yeah.
And-
Schaumburg has just about every restaurant in the world there, so
Yeah.
that's
It's
surprising.
one of everything.
Yeah.
It's like Orland Park.
Orland Park. I've been down there for a while.
Yeah. Which is south suburbs version of Schaumburg. So,
Yeah. My brother lives in Park Forest, so sometimes we go down and see him. We cruise by there too.
The most confusing place to drive is 59 because every 5 miles, everything repeats. It's like you got your Home Depot and then you have your grocery stores and then you have all the big box shops. Everything repeats. It might be 10 miles.
Yeah, I know what you're saying though, because I used to think that 59 going south would pretty much clear out, but now Naperville goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got, like you're saying, all the
Everything
box
repeats.
stores and everything, yeah.
How many what
How
is
many
it?
Home Depots do we need?
Yeah. Or the restaurants, they're all the same. And they just repeat.
Yeah. You almost walk to your restaurant, you don't have to drive there.
Yeah.
It's in your neighborhood. Well, not my neighborhood.
not my neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start us off with number 1. Human Resource Administration is the primary responsibility of the Human Resource Department. HR is that group out there, but they still have some ability to help us get people or reassign people or contractors.
The project manager has the most influence in weak matrix organizations.
WIC matrix is more like a functional organization. So WIC is closer to.
So B and
functional.
C are both wrong.
Yeah.
So then it would be strong matrix
Yeah,
organization.
strong matrix, we usually have more authority and influence there.
Okay, number 3, what impact does a matrix organization have on project team development? And I selected B, it complicates team development.
Yeah, it does. People go back to their functional groups, may not be with us forever. Maybe pulling people in from different functional groups too that maybe you work together, maybe not. Staff may be acquired from which of the following resources or sources? I think it's going to be, it's kind of a funny worded one, but it's actually E, B, and C, which is answer E.
Yeah.
You could just say all the above, I think. Doesn't say that, does it?
Legitimate power is C, power earned based on a person's technical knowledge, skill, and expertise.
Legitimate power, let's see. This sounds a little bit like expert. What they were trying to get at here was that legitimate's more like the formal position that you have in the organization.
Oh, so power bestowed upon a person's personal ability, B?
A, actually.
A?
Power
Derived
derived from the person's
Okay.
formal position.
Okay. Now I follow what you were saying.
Good, good.
Okay, the number 6 is the project resource management process. Processes include all except, and I went with D, control project team.
Yep, that's the exception. By the way, in our quizzes, I know we got the word except or alts usually capitalized.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but from what I understand in the exam, it won't be capitalized. So be a little more subtle. You have to kind of catch those words.
Okay.
Forcing as a means to manage conflict exerts one's view at the potential expense of another party. So A is a good answer for that one.
The acronym for RAM is C.
Yep.
Responsibility assignment or assessment matrix.
Assignment matrix, yeah.
Assignment, yeah.
And a RACI or RACI is a type of a RAM. You know, it comes up later.
I just like random access memory
I do too.
because that is so accurate, except for used in plan resource management.
It could be though.
But you could say there's RAM used in plan resource management
Yeah,
because,
technically speaking, yeah.
yeah, technically, well, if they don't use any electronics, then we're wrong.
Yeah.
But I know what you're.
People refer to your brain as RAM. You have RAM up here, right? So I think
Well,
it
it's not too random.
depends how much you want to stretch it. Okay, is that me to 9?
I think so.
Salary and security can be dissatisfiers and not motivators themselves. This is an example of Hertzberg's motivation theory.
Yep, that's correct. Actually, I think it was my turn, but I'll let you do it.
Oh, well, he went with that one. Wait, we're going this way.
Are we?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's your turn
Now
now.
it's my turn then. Constraints that impact the plan resource management process do not include impact of unsatisfactory performance processes. We haven't done anything there. I mean, you might have some history, but it doesn't say that specifically.
Which of the following is not a tool or technique of manage team? I put C, team performance assessment input.
Yeah, C is correct.
Okay, 12. The types and quantities of resources required for each work package activity is, I put B is found in the process of estimate activity resources.
Yeah, B is correct. What is not among the tools and techniques for develop the team? A staffing management plan is not.
Important interpersonal skills the project manager uses to interact with the project team and stakeholders include all of the above.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, 15, co-location can mean I selected A, project team members are moved to the same physical location for the
But-
life of the project.
I think C it can also be C though, because you can be moved to a very specific location, which would be like in a war room.
And actually, in this case, A and C are both good, so.
Also in the book, I believe co-location is one word, not dashed, hyphenated, whatever.
Could be.
Yeah, well, at least it's not gender bias, so we're good. I don't think there was a single gender bias question on this.
No, there wasn't.
How about that?
I feel a little let down now. My expectations have been squashed.
Which of the following is best? How do we again?
Yeah,
No,
it's you.
it's you.
We're going this way.
We're
Which of the
counterclockwise.
following is best for handling cross-functional project needs for a large, complex project? These choices, a strong matrix organization would be the best. Two of those are not. This is one where you could go coordinator and expediter. Those aren't. organizational setup, so that don't even make sense. But matrix would be the best, strong matrix.
Acquire resource tools and techniques include E, all of the above.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, the correct order of Tuckman's four team development model stages is forming, storming, norming, and performing. Journey is the final stage in some models. So I took C.
Yep, C is good. 5 general conflict resolution techniques include all of those, plus one more, which isn't listed there.
The team charter contains all of the above.
Yeah.
One example of a RAM which links the project team members to the project work that needs to be done is called a RACI, RACI, right? Okay, B.
Called it Racky for a while, but some of my students actually used a racy file like that, so yeah, that's correct.
Is that the, I don't know how you pronounce it, but
Sometimes I just say RACI.
RACI.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like racy.
Racy.
I kind of do.
RACI.
Yeah, racy. Yeah.
RACI.
Yeah. Which type of organization is team building likely to be most difficult? Matrix organization, these choices. 2 bosses, dealing with the 2 bosses and trying to figure out what's going on, and you also got people on a temporary basis a lot of times.
Which of the following statements concerning compromise as a conflict resolution technique is false? D, a definitive resolution is seldom achieved.
That's correct.
I have a bad example of conflict resolution. 2 kids, both junior high, brother and sister, wouldn't stop fighting, wouldn't stop fighting, wouldn't stop fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So I called them into the kitchen. I gave them both the 2 largest knives I could find, and I said, just kill each other. And then they both, I knew they wouldn't do it. So they looked at me and began laughing. I'm like, okay, can you figure this one out too now? And it worked. It was the damn funniest thing ever.
And I'm glad they didn't kill each other.
Yeah, you know, you have to know your crowd.
Yeah, you know their personality and stuff. You can do that.
Yeah.
Get away with it.
It was awesome. Their mom thought it was great.
Okay, 24. Which of the following is part of the Vroom's expectancy theory of motivation? And I took C. People tend to be highly productive and motivated. They believe their efforts will lead to success results, and success will lead to personal rewards.
Yep, C is correct. A or N histogram is a
histogram.
is a commonly used graphically display past and forecasted resource usage hours. It's grammatically too good.
Here's what I did.
Graphically, this is okay.
A histogram, yeah, just commonly used.
Yeah.
Control resource tools and techniques include all of the above.
Yep, that's correct.
What's the name of the tool or the output when you sit there and you take like a job link and you put it into the website and it picks out the keywords in bolder or different colors? Do you know the name of that? I went blank on that earlier today and I can't think of it.
You got a scanning tool that does that?
Yeah, you just upload it to a website and it pulls out the keywords. So when you actually write your resume for that job,
yeah,
the keywords pop out and you can put that in your resume.
Yeah, that's a good technique to do that. I didn't know there was a tool.
Yeah.
Sounds neat.
I can't think of the name.
Huh?
That's gonna kill me. Okay.
Oh, if you remember it, I'd be interested in finding out.
Yeah.
Pass it on to other students. We often talk about, tailoring your resume for a particular job.
Mm-hmm. Only if it's a good one.
If it's one it's one you really
It
want.
has to be one I really want.
Yeah.
Not just the, ooh, I need 5 this week, so I need 20.
That's what cracks me up, because the workman 2-page, cook,
All of
everybody,
them.
require you to turn in X amount of job requests per week.
Yeah.
And since that gets, what, 3 to 5% of the jobs?
Mhm.
So why do that? Why not send them off to a networking group or something else that might be more helpful?
Have you met the people that are at those locations?
At the work nets?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oi.
and there's few of them now too, because they've cut back so much.
Ugh. Yeah, they get excited when they get people with skills. No, I can't work a press machine. You are 100% correct. Organizational flowcharts? Yeah, I can make those. And that's when people's eyes gloss over. Oh, well, John, your turn.
Okay, 27, considerations in selecting staff from a resource pool should include, I selected E, all of the above.
Yeah, so they're all of the above. And unfortunately, from what I understand, you're not going to see that many all of the above answers in the exam either. And not 5 answers too. Inputs to estimate activity resources include all except published estimating data. D is the exception.
See, I kind of disagreed with that. I put it down as my highest one, but if you look up page 322 to 323 in PMBOK, so you have estimate activity resource inputs, and that goes from page 322 to 323. One of them under, where was it? Published estimating data was under enterprise.
Environmental factors.
Yeah. So that makes this question wrong.
Interesting.
But I did pick that one because it was a different section.
Under estimate activity resources?
Yeah, under the enterprise environmental factors. Published estimating data is listed there.
It says old number 13 in parentheses.
Attributes.
That's why I picked
Resource
it.
calendar.
It says old number 13.
I picked it because it was under a different tab.
Yeah,
It was
know.
9.2.
If you go in here, it's not in the categories.
But according to the PMBOK book, I
Yeah.
disagreed with the answer.
Yeah, good point. Good catch too.
Well, everything was listed, and I'm like, crap. But that one's in a different section, so I'll pick it.
Yeah, it was a subsection of enterprise environmental factors. But
Okay.
it was listed though, so that's,
Yeah. Which of the following is not a tool and technique of the plan resource management? Okay, I kind of had 2 for this one, so I wasn't 100% sure. Organizational chart, organizational breakdown structure, OBS, or networking. I kind of think it's A. But it's one of those 2.
I went with D myself.
I thought negotiation was listed on
I
the.
don't know. This one I had a hard time with because I think A is actually a tool and technique, and I think C is, but I don't know about B and D. I couldn't find it in this.
I couldn't find it.
It
It
was,
didn't make sense.
I don't know,
to me.
they had,
Expert judgment and negotiation didn't sound right at
yeah,
all.
they had meetings or something. So I thought meetings might be networking, so. I picked
well,
negotiation.
plan, actually negotiation doesn't really come in there. If you look later, you'll see it comes in when we're acquiring resources and stuff, when we need to deal with other teams and project managers.
I don't know. Well, where does, if you go back into this thing, it doesn't really talk about networking either. I don't know. Plan resource management.
Yeah. That's why I picked A and B. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm leaning more towards A, but maybe it's B. Or I'm completely wrong.
It says expert judgment, and then it says, well, under hierarchical charts, it says organizational breakdown structure, but
So then networking, B.
networking.
You got a different answer for that? Networking.
I got negotiation.
You got negotiation, no, for C, what answer do you have? For B, I mean,
Yeah, B is networking.
which is interesting because I got organizational theory on my chart. Hierarchical chart, organizational expert judgment, and negotiation.
We got two different answers.
We got two different sets of
A
answers.
is organizational chart on mine. Is that what you got?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, organizational charts first on mine.
And I got B is networking, C is expert judgment,
Yeah,
and D is negotiation. If you had organizational theory, then it would be D.
Yeah,
Which is what I selected, but it could be B.
All right, sorry
B or
about that.
D
I
is-
pulled and printed quizzes out of the closet there that were.
Here, we have networking. So networking, I think, could be an answer too.
For the plan networking usually isn't, later we'll see networking is going to be important as far as dealing with other projects and project managers.
This were the
Sorry.
selections that D would, I think, would be the
Yeah,
obvious
these
answer.
selections, which should be what you have in your sheets. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that those were obsolete quizzes.
Yeah, we got, like here, for example, I have something in parentheses that says old number 13.
Which shouldn't be in there because that's actually my note to myself, because I moved some things around. So you got to
So we'll accept B or D on that one, right?
B if it's, what was it on here?
Networking?
networking and negotiation, so it's B
Yeah.
and D.
B or D.
Or if you had organizational theories or B, then it would be just negotiation.
You also had old, I think, on a couple of these or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, because-
some were a little bit.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake of trying to use those old printed copies and it's
No, it's all good.
getting us in trouble. Getting me in trouble. Is it my turn?
Yeah,
See if your answers are
No,
they're
it's off.
different.
they're different.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
D is just modeling, which is the answer, I think.
Yeah, and even schedule modeling is still
okay,
the
you
answer.
put a different word.
I think I tried to clarify that a little bit because modeling by itself is kind of vague.
Is it to me?
Yep.
Okay, 31, you are managing a project and find that you need to apply resource leveling. Which of the following tools can help you identify resources that are over allocated? I selected A, resource histogram.
That's correct. Hope you have something similar for 32.
32, HR project. Project. The ground rules are established to set clear expectations regarding acceptable behavior by the project team members. Whose responsibility is it to enforce ground rules? B or D, and I'm going with D more.
D, we want senior team members and project managers to do.
Yeah,
How about the team members?
all team members?
Yeah.
Yeah, but, some of them might not be skilled team members, so we have to whip them into shape.
Yeah. Bimbach talks about this on page 319, 320.
So they selected C.
See,
I selected B, I said the project manager.
who's the biggest babysitter on the project? It's project manager, but
But that's a different issue.
yeah.
We can get our people to work through their problems with each other. That's probably the best thing to do.
All right.
Do you have a question 34 on here?
Yeah,
Oh, good. Okay, so it's partially in line.
Okay,
As you walk into your office, you receive an email from the sponsor notifying you the audit team will be soon in your office to start a risk audit on your project.
dum dum dum.
Next email you receive has been forwarded to you and involves conflict between two team members. You are immediately bombarded with phone calls from both parties to the email complaining about the other. Which conflict resolution technique would you immediately use with these team members? Guess we have the audit about to start. This is a situation going, guys, we got an audit about to start. Let's postpone this for now or avoid dealing with this. Let's table this and we'll come back to it. So C's a good answer for that one.
Collaborate and problem solve involve compromising. 8.
Collaborate. Oh, I'm sorry. Collaborate, problem solving, really are getting different viewpoints and insights, trying to come up with a consensus and a commitment. So I think C is probably better. Compromise is the one where we had to give up things. When they talk about collaborate or problem solving, they're kind of saying, yeah, we came up with a solution that everyone agrees on.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to change that one question, and I'm going to make sure I don't pull up old copies of that quiz that
Yeah,
aren't quite in sync.
want to look at this one?
No.
Because I don't know, I wasn't checking all the answers there, but some of them on here have notes next to them.
I can actually print out a new set of my answer sheet, which would be the new set of questions and answers. And I have that handy here too.
I really need to look up that keyword chart. It's bothering the hell out of me.
Oh, the search tool.
Uh-huh.
Well, communication, we might not get through it all, because we only got a half hour left. Oh, the communication is pretty straightforward.
There's 3 of them.
You find out we have one formula in communication,
Oh. Formula.
a formula. Pretty simple though. So we've got 3 processes: plan communications, manage communications, control communications. So a little bit about it again.
Monitor communications.
Monitor, what did I say?
It's a control.
Control.
Yeah.
That's another one where they changed the word from the 5th edition to the 6th edition.
Yeah.
So really, it's the whole process of getting information out at the right time to the right people. So that's what we're doing in planning, is figuring out, what kind of communications do we need, who needs it, when do they need it. Manage communications, just, moving through the project and getting that information out. And monitor communications, making sure that we've got the right information going to the right people and changing what we got if we're not quite syncing up with everybody. There's 3 processes, some key concepts. It's really about exchange of information. Sometimes it's, obviously when we're trying to really communicate, we're doing it intentionally, but sometimes involuntary stuff happens too. And we'll see it too, that the informal communication between staff a lot of times is as important as what we formally communicate. They're complaining with each other about what's going on, but not talking to us about it. That's probably not a good thing, but it happens a lot. Be different kinds of communication, formal, informal, things that are noticed through gestures or body language. A lot of times what comes through the media that we've used. Choice of words. I didn't really think much about choice of words until I started putting these presentations together, and I had a spell check on that was telling me, you're using the passive voice. Well, definitions are usually in the passive voice, and it's not active saying, do this, do that. So I eventually took off that particular thing. Communications, 5 C's that they saw as kind of helpful in doing this, making sure our grammar and spelling is correct, using concise expressions, trying to eliminate too many words, being clear in the purpose for what we're communicating, have a good logical flow of ideas, and controlling that flow of words and ideas. Communicating, some people say that 80 or 90% of what we do is communicating. It's interesting to me. I think in my world it was kind of true. I had to communicate with the team, with other project managers, and also with senior management quite a bit. And a lot of different ways we can do this. And I think it's interesting down here, they kind of get at the fact that if we're doing written or nonverbal kinds of things, which is a lot of what we did, we wouldn't see the body language of people. We could hear the tone of voice sometimes on a call, but we wouldn't actually see they're angry or how angry they were. You know, I'd hear their voice, but that's kind of a limited thing.
Okay, on our slides, we don't have tone of voice.
Tone of voice.
Bottom left.
Okay. And that gets back to our problem of printing the books up too soon after and make little changes to it. Communication skills, you mentioned active listening at the top of that list. Being aware of different cultural or personal differences. Using different styles like communicate, like asking questions, doing some fact finding, trying to identify expectations. It mentioned persuading or negotiating. And there's a resolving conflict showing up again too. So it's interesting to me, I don't think this is a new thing, but they were kind of talking about how it seemed like a lot of times communication was more one way, going out to our people and our stakeholders. Ideally though, really it had to be two way even in the old days. So if we're just going one way with it, we're probably going to miss good responses and things from our people or from our customers. And as mentioned here, we're using various methods now of communicating. Social media has become much more important. And so there may be a lot of different ways we're going to communicate. We need to understand our stakeholders, are they just inside the company or external stakeholders too, or both. And co-located, I don't have a dash in that one. Co-located without a dash. Multiple locations, different time zones. What kind of technology are we using? Languages. Do we have lots of languages involved, or are we talking about one? Knowledge management too. Do we have access to the places where, the data warehouse or repositories where we save a lot of information? Agile and adaptive environments. Usually this is more of an evolving thing, but there's usually the bi-weekly check-ins or the daily check-ins too that can help make sure that we're getting communications out well. Co-locating where possible. No dash in there again. Okay. So plan the plan. This is, of course, something pretty important to our success in the project. We want to make sure we're communicating with the right people, giving them the right information, so we get the who, what, where, when kinds of things here. Who needs what? When do they need it? Where's the information stored? What format will it be in? And how will this information be pulled up or retrieved? And then dealing with the time zone, language barriers, and different problems that way that can come up. So the charter, one of the inputs. Project management plan, in particular the resource management plan and the stakeholder engagement plan. Documents, the stakeholder register, requirements docs. Enterprise factors. Again, what kind of structure or environment do we have for communicating within our organization? And lessons learned and historical information from past projects can be helpful too. 2 versions ago, PMBOK, stakeholder management and communications management was one knowledge area. We decided there's enough distinct things and it was split them apart. With that being said, what are we doing with communicating? We're communicating with our stakeholders. So they're still, closely linked, even though there's 2 separate knowledge areas now. Tools and techniques, expert judgment, going through doing some communication requirement analysis, like what kind of information needs to get out to who, all those kind of factors. Communication technology is just kind of a broad general term for all the different ways we could communicate with our people. And it may vary depending on if it's, what we have available, ease of access to get to our information. Factors like urgency. They also mentioned like sensitivity or confidential information. How do we handle that? Here's a basic sender-receiver model for communicating. So I'm thinking of something, I want to put it into words, so I encode it, send that message out. The receiver, the other person gets it, decodes it, tries to understand what I'm trying to tell them. We might have to go back and forth because maybe I didn't make it clear, or maybe I said something different than what I really intended for the person to understand. So a lot of times we have to bounce back and forth to make sure that the real meaning gets through. There's a problem a lot of times. A lot of times there's barriers in between. They like to use the term noise too for things that could disrupt things or make it more difficult to have that back and forth conversation. Here's another picture of the same kind of thing from Timbuk. So same kind of idea again, you know, I'm putting together some message, sending it off, they're getting it, sending it back. They mentioned other things here that could impact or make it harder to understand biases or language barriers and stuff. Various things like that could cause problems. Gender. So one time we could talk about gender, whether there are differences between men and women and how they perceive or understand things and how we're saying it. Tools and techniques, it's kind of three categories that they break everything down into. Interactive, that's obviously back and forth between two or more people, and they use different kinds of tools for it. Push is more like the memo, we're sending it one way, more of a directive, go ahead and do this work. Pull is more of the idea, especially with large complex projects. We may have a data warehouse or database out there where stuff's put out there. The weekly report will be posted Monday morning after 8 a.m., something like that. And then people can pull it up whenever they want to. They mentioned some different approaches here. Interpersonal is kind of like the interactive. They have a small group, it could be public, mass communications, using networks or social media. There's a lot of different ways we can do this. Interpersonal team skills, you know, what kind of style are we using? Are we aware of any political or cultural differences or you know, things that could be a block or a problem for us? And we're probably going to use charts and things too, so we might have some data representations. It's interesting, I just read an article by a woman that was talking about how she was Me Too'd before Me Too. And basically, she was shamed publicly by her former boyfriend in a CNN.
I just heard that story too.
Did you?
Yeah.
And it ended up with our mass media nowadays. It went viral. That particular episode went viral, and even 6 or 7 years later, after she moved to Australia and married another man, still getting people pulling up her name, and top of the list would be that link to the video. So she had a hard time getting away from it. It was talking about really the whole article was talking about how we've just taken shaming to a whole new level. It used to be shamed in your city, maybe just move into the next city, next town. People wouldn't know anything about it. Well, now with everything in.
I didn't even know there was shaming until, you know, it started showing up on the internet, right? So now anything you say is shaming.
Yeah.
If it's negative to a person, you shame them in some way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a liberal, you might shame a conservative for having certain views, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You know,
anything you say
Trump,
negative,
I think, is kind of doing some shaming off and on.
You think so?
Yeah. But then he talked about how we should have some liability consequences for people that do that publicly.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say about this woman. Can't she take some action and get the video removed off the site? I don't know what site it would be on, but she could probably make her case and have them take the video down and kill the link.
Yeah, maybe that's something she should have done, but she wasn't able, for whatever reason, to do that.
But you could still do it, I suppose, right?
Yeah. It's been 6 or 7 years
if
since
there's
the original.
people seeing it and they're doing something to her personally, I don't know what it would be, but if she's having some personal problem with it, she could probably do something. She probably has some rights.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
But
I'm not a lawyer.
Apparently she wasn't able to.
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know.
Yeah. Outputs of this will be our communication management plan. Include how we're gonna handle our communications and our emails, guidelines probably for what we communicate in our meetings. Updates to our big plan, and perhaps some updates to our schedule and stakeholder register. Especially if in our schedule, maybe we include, status meetings and things like that. We want to make sure we got that in there. Here's your one formula you're going to get. Communication channels. It's really the idea, how many different ways can people talk to each other? We've got a simple example here, and I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This example, pretty easy to figure out. But when you're talking about 300 people or 2,000 people, we're not going to have to worry about communicating with everybody in the 2,000 necessarily, but we should be aware that there may be all these different variations that could go play into things there. The formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2, where n is the number of people. I had a little bit too much time one time, and I took these smiley faces and I did another little chart where I did 3, 4, 5, up to 25, showing how the formula works for any kind of number.
So the channel is just one of those red lines, right?
Yeah.
So it's two-way communication, right?
Right, two-way communication.
That's
How
why
many
there's a
different-
divide by 2 in there.
Yeah, how many different ways we communicate? So it's formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. When I took the exam the second time, I didn't put that down in my cheat sheet. I had that one kind of burned in my mind, so I thought, and you might get a question or two about communication channels.
So I have a question I didn't think about much, but when that formula, is that always come up with it always comes up with an integer?
Yes.
Just the engineer on me looking at it. Because when you divide by 2, you don't necessarily have to come up with an integer.
Well, you
come
got
up with
a number. If this was an even number, this would be an odd number. Or if this is an odd number, this would be an even number. So
there
it's
you go.
always going to be.
So if it was
So the odd times an
1,500,
even is an even number.
It's always going to be an even number on the
Divide
top.
by 2 gives you an even number. Gives you
Hold
an
on.
integer.
so, and okay, if you have 1,500 participants, it would be 1499
Yeah.
times 1,500
Yeah.
divided by 2.
And it's going to have a couple zeros on the end of it, I think. It's got 1,500.
I got a calculator.
A calculator.
Well, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
I'll go here off the calculator.
Oh, this thing did plus instead of times. I'm like, that did not make sense, how it calculated. So
Yeah.
1499 times 1,500
I got 112.
divided by
1,000,002.
Yeah, 1.124.
1,124,250.
5 0 on the end of
There's
it.
nothing after the decimal place on it.
It's a whole number, and it's an even number too.
There's more to that formula than you would.
Right.
think.
It
It involves
good the engineer
mathematics.
brought that up in you, because it's.
That's a cool one.
That's just the engineer.
Yeah. And where this comes into play, like if we got a small team, it's probably less of an issue. But if we got a huge team and people, 20 countries.
Oh, I totally want to see what my team was. So let's do.
Well, I can understand how you get the formula.
Yeah.
You take n and then you take multiplied by n minus 1, which then if each of these is a two-way connection, then you would divide by 2.
That's a pretty neat one, because my team of 19 had 171 different connections.
Yeah, which is kind of an interesting thing, because you don't think about that normally when you're working with your team. You just think you got, how many people?
19.
19 people. You've got 19 channels, but then there's this other 171 minus 19 channels that are going on.
Yeah.
Not always
Well,
important.
hold on, I didn't include me.
Aha. Which is
So
a good point,
it's-
because when you get the exam, and even in our quiz, you'll see that you have to read the question carefully to understand whether we are included in that number or whether I have X amount of people. So 190 with you included.
Does that also include me talking to myself? No, that's the -1.
Okay.
Yeah, the -1 is you talking to yourself.
What if you have multiple personalities and you think you're more than one person?
Interesting.
Or somebody on your team that's got multiple personalities?
Well, if you know they have multiple personalities and you know the formula, you have to make that a -1. If they have 3 different personalities, it would be a +2.
So Sybil would have, like, what was it, 7 or 8
Yeah, or something like that.
personalities or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, keyword histogram is what it's called. It looks like this.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah, I just can't find the tool to make them anymore.
What is it?
Used to be able to take, it's like this or like this one. What you do is you take a job and you put the entire ad into the site and then you would kick this out.
What's this called?
Histogram. It's a keyword histogram.
Yeah, it's not how I think there's another word for it, but
Histograph? I don't know. That's how I look it up. Yeah, but I can't find the site anymore. That's what is bothering me. I can't find the site. Do you know it?
No. I could find it.
If you could, that would be swell, because that's actually bothering me.
It's like a word gram or something. Who's Keith?
Keyword gram?
I've seen those before, yeah. Who's Keith?
Yep. Yep. He was offended, ran away. I'm offensive.
Sure. Let me think about it. I got your email. I come up with it.
See, there's a whole bunch. It's.
Sorry.
Did you find the actual tool?
No.
Just
Not yet.
pictures of the tool and what it does.
Yeah, picture. I used to use it all the time, and I haven't lately.
Hacker.com.
See, this is. I don't want to program it. I just want to drop it and run it. I'm lazy.
I can't remember the. There's another word for it. I'll find it.
Word cloud. I think that's it.
Yeah, word cloud.
Word cloud?
Yeah,
Word
that's it.
cloud generator.
Yep, that's it. Word cloud.
Uh-huh.
Okay, or word cluster or something. Yeah, word cloud. Yeah. That was it.
Word cloud maker. Let's see if that's it.
All right, well, you're looking at talking about some problems we have in communications. Bias, inappropriate or distorted perceptions, blah, 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 lack of relevance, which is one of the problems we had in our meetings a lot of times. Different words that mean, same word that means different things in various locations or cultures. And some other barrier type things, insensitive questions, putting people down, hostile humor, put downs and things. I think it's interesting. That's a terrible idea. Well, okay, that might not be the best way to say it, but don't take this personally, but you're wrong.
I'm so bad at that side.
Yeah.
The brutally honest, hostile humor. Yeah, sarcasm. I know I do all that.
Yeah. My wife is pretty good at sarcasm now, but she said she learned it from me. 'Cause I didn't think I was that sarcastic, but I guess I was pretty much.
As soon as you say don't take this personally, they'll take it personally.
Yeah.
That's why I never use that phrase.
Yeah, those are all
As
kind
soon as
of
you start
loaded
out-
phrases.
Don't take this personally. They'll just take it personally.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to suggest that we start up with 10.2 managed communications next time. I don't mind slipping a little bit because this often happens in this class, or going faster. In this case, going a little bit
So
slower.
one comment I have on communications, I think you brought this up in one slide, but I think it's important.
Mhm.
Is that, and somebody else told me about this too, and it confirms it. Is that when you communicate,
Go ahead.
when you communicate with somebody, it said up here, they told me it's 60% is nonverbal communication or body language. Okay,
Yeah.
and then they said 33% is tone of voice, and then 7% is actually what you're saying.
That's what you're saying?
So you would think when you communicate with somebody, and especially when you're talking with them, that the most important thing would be what you're saying. But in reality, it's studies indicate it's not. It's your body
A
language,
few more things on the back side.
and then it's your tone of voice, and then it's actually what you're saying.
I'm gonna give you this one too, because it's got stuff on the back side too, a few things in there. It's just kind of a summary again of what we've seen in the slides, so.
Excellent.
You guys have big plans for the weekend?
No. Supposed to be nice, supposed to be pretty good weather.
I can't believe, yes, in the 40s for the weekend, and then 52 is the expected high for Monday.
Yeah, but rain, I think.
I think rain too, yeah, but it's kind
Or
of
we could
weird.
run outside naked and be like, it's so warm
Yeah,
out.
I was thinking, of them going out and, I don't know, maybe doing some lawn and yard work or something, but.
Oh, I don't want my lawn to be